Hey everybody. I see TJ's all ready to go down there. Uh Looks like he's had a haircut, maybe. I may ask him when I get him on here. so Clifton, you are back. You say it's been a while, always loved your channel. Hello. Well, welcome back. We're glad to see you again. Looks like we got five in here. One of those might be TJ, so technically we probably got four. So I'm going to go ahead and add TJ real quick. And once again, he's TJ Spare, the narrator. Hey TJ,
Hi.
is that is that one of those cavity colors shirts or?
No, it's a Fright Rags. No, wait a minute. It might be. I don't remember. I have hundreds of shirts. I don't know where I get them. I don't know.
You can't keep track of it.
It was from last year's buy, so I it might be cavity colors. I don't remember.
It just the background part of it, the way it's like those splashy, like tie-dye kind of colors reminds me of that. I haven't ever bought anything from Cavity Colors or Gutter Garbs. I need to though, because they've got some cool shirts. I'm just gonna have to save up a little bit of money because they are kind of pricey. I think they're a little bit more pricey than Fright Rags, and I thought Fright Rags was expensive.
Fright Rags is going up. They've been like $28 and $29, and it's crazy.
Yeah,
I like it when it was 15 or 12 or something like that.
I don't ever remember, like, I guess I didn't buy from Fright Rags back when their stuff was cheaper. I think from the first moment I bought something, they'd been close to $30.
I think Fast Custom Shirts kind of keeps the same prices.
Yeah, I need to hook back up with Joe and see if I can get some shirts from him because he is reasonable and he makes, quality shirts.
Yeah.
Or I think his shirts are quality.
I mean, I have a Tales from the Darkside that I got from them years ago, and I just can't find it.
I know. I think some of my shirts, I bought so many shirts at one point in time from and then Joe gave me, he gave me some here and there. So,
well, lucky you.
Yeah, bless his heart. If you keep doing these streams with me long enough, maybe Joe will make you a shirt, TJ, and he'll give it to you free. Because when I did the blood type fanzine, Joe made a blood type shirt and sent it to me. And Seductive Poison, when Jenny and I did Seductive Poison, I don't know if you ever listened to that when we did that little podcast. No. He made a shirt for that too as well, and I think he sent me and Jenny both one. So anyway,
every year on my Instagram I do 31 shirts of October.
Do you really?
I've done it for like 7-8 years, and I haven't repeated a shirt. So
wow.
And that's just the horror movie shirts that I.
Well, actually, I think some of my T-shirts, like when I moved in with Steve, I didn't take everything with me, and so Mom's been slowly farming the stuff out when I come to visit them. She's like, I found this whole tote full of your stuff. Do you want to take it? And Steve's like, no, we don't have room for it. But I'm sure some of my older T-shirts are probably still at Mom and Dad's.
Yeah.
I need to get. So TJ and I are going to shortly here. We're going to start covering the first half. We're not, we did that once and it went on for way too long. And
I can't stay up that late tonight.
So what did we decide? 12 episodes is what we're going to cover.
Yeah, that's a good
half of the episodes. And then
yeah,
next Wednesday, barring anything happening, we'll cover the last 12 episodes of the second season. And then
so I had an idea about a different way to do this. So we don't maybe spoil people who haven't seen all the episodes. I say we should talk about the bulk of the episode without the ending really, and then talk a little about that, and then after we kind of give our opinions, then talk about the ending. That way people can go, hey, I'll stop listening.
Okay, yeah,
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I think that's a fine idea. Because I don't like to give away like endings to people that haven't like either experienced a movie or experienced a television show.
Yeah.
I did see that Movie Junkie John put a comment over the first one we did for the first season, and he said that I guess because of that, it made him want to go back and watch it again. He was talking about what a great show it was. So, see, that was my idea. I was hoping that it would either, one, get new fans of the show that had never seen it, or fans that remember it from way back when but hadn't watched it in years and give them a chance to go back and rewatch the episodes. I'm having fun rewatching the episodes. How have you been doing with them? Is it nostalgic and fun and all
Well, a
that?
lot of them, as I'm watching them, like it's like I just saw them yesterday. Like I'm kind of like,
Right.
oh, I remember this and I remember that. Like I can't. Like some movies, I can sit and watch them and be objective and not like I know when stuff is coming, but I can sort of get into the movie enough that I can not be surprised, but like I'm like, oh, okay. And then sometimes actually it's good to see you'll see things you didn't spot before. That's what I like about rewatching these episodes. Like I know what's going on, but it's like once in a while I go, oh, I didn't see that. I didn't notice that part there. So
Well, something that I've been noticing quite a bit more this time around of watching them or rewatching them rather is like who did the special effects. Like I'm seeing Greg Nicotero's name and I believe Howard Berger's name. Like I guess this was not K and B stuff,
yeah.
but it was just a couple of those guys that were working on some of these episodes. And I know they had a close connection with Savini, so Savini and Romero and all all this stuff kind of ties in together. Hey, there's John.
Hi, John.
Well, thanks a lot. You both officially made me restart this whole series. I love it. See, now that just makes it all worth it. Doing these things is like kind of reintroducing people to it or introducing them for the first time to it. So John says he finished season 1 today and he needs to start season 2. Well, thanks to TJ bringing it up, we're going to try not to spoil anything for anybody. So we're going to give you a heads up before we give any spoilers to the episodes. And we're only covering 12 tonight, John, because me and TJ both kind of like, well, me actually, I think I overestimated exactly or underestimated rather how much time it was actually going to take to go through all those episodes.
Yeah.
So John says spoilers don't bother him. He'll watch no matter what. Well, we'll give you a warning before we give any spoilers away. So I'd been feeling, bad on and off, so I didn't get to do the Tarantino stream last night. I'm sure all you guys were brokenhearted that I didn't do a Tarantino stream last night. But we're gonna do this one tonight. And then I don't know. I'll have to see how I'm feeling. I'm still pretty wiped out, but I really wanted to do this stream tonight. I may do a De Palma stream. We're scraping the bottom of the barrel on the De Palma films anyway at this point. I mean, I hate to say that because I think De Palma's a great director. It's just that some of the films are sorely lacking compared with, Dress to Kill and Blowout and stuff like that, and even Carrie that I covered early on. Let's see. John does say, I was surprised at how hokey and silly some of the episodes were. Some of them tonight are going to be hokey and silly, but, I still love them when I watch them. He said, I always remembered only the creepy ones. I'm surprised at how many I could remember, because it's been a while since I sat down and watched this whole series again. Let's see. Yeah, TJ, you said the 80s was full of cheese. It pretty much was. John says, yeah, I think in my head I was thinking the witch and the little monster thing in the closet. It's a lot of fun, like Twilight Zone. They're amazing stories. Yeah, it's not as dark and macabre as Tales from the Crypt. I would agree with that. Eventually, I want to do a Tales from the Crypt stream too, because I have every one of the seasons on DVD back in the room with the guinea pigs and the snake and the iguana. People probably think, "Good God, you got your snake back there with your guinea pigs. What if he gets out?" But I've got a lock on his terrarium and all that, so I think we're pretty good.
Mm.
Yeah, TJ, you're right that on HBO you could make things more gory and darker because that was cable. That was cable. So whereas this stuff's on TV, but I'm going to talk about it when we get to this episode, but there were some things that I was surprised they got away with on TV, and that, like I said, I'll mention it when we get to that episode. But I did want to remind everybody that this Saturday I'm going to have a Schizoid watch along starring the infamous Klaus Kinski. And I'm sure you guys are all going to love that. And, as always, anybody's free to join me live on the stream if they want to join in with that.
And Donna Wilkes is in it too.
Donna Wilkes. And according to Darren, Kinski was having an affair with Donna Wilkes behind the scenes. And she was playing his daughter in the movie. But I just don't want to think about that too much. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and get started. And I have my copy of the second season here. So, TJ, do you want to kick it off with your impressions of The Impressionist, which is the first episode?
I can do a bunny rabbit.
Exactly.
Okay, well, let's see. After man lives in the sunlit world of what he believes to be reality, there is unseen by most an underworld, a place that is just as real, but not as brightly lit. A dark side.
There we go.
Yeah, I screwed to that one really fast. All right. So The Impressionist is the first episode. And it's about a comedian who does impressions. And he's very good at his job, but he's very bored because that's all he does. But then people who work for him want him to do more, I guess, more stuff that'll go over more with a wider audience because he does impressions of, W.C. Fields and Laurel and Hardy. And this is a hip 80s crowd. They don't want to watch stuff from the 40s and 30s or whatever. So even now, it's even worse now. People are like, who's he doing an impression of?
Yeah, they probably, kids now are like, maybe not even kids, but like, oh, Curly Jaws again. His generation will probably look at that and say, who the hell is that? I don't know who that is.
So meanwhile, so they're like, hey, Spiff, his name is Spiffy. Mm-hmm. Spiffy Remo. They're like, spiff up your act a little bit. And he gets a visit from this guy. It's a very strange guy with a tick, and he's like, we want you to come and help us with this project. We're what they call themselves. What do they call themselves?
Gosh, I'm trying to remember now what they
call themselves Uncle. So they're basically.
Oh yeah, because he says Uncle wants you.
Yeah, so they're a branch of the government who I'm sure they're like Mulder and Scully, but not as cool. But so they take them to this facility, and they're like, "Hey, we want you to put your skills of being an impressionist to good use." And that's where the dark side comes in. Anything after that's a spoiler. So I don't know if you want to talk about it up to that point.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and the guy with the tick. I can't remember the actor's name, but he was to me he was the creepiest part of the episode because he was so intense looking. He looked like he could just flip out and kill your ass at the drop of a hat. In addition to that tick, which was just bizarre. Yeah, he just kept doing that. And the character, Spiffy's manager, he looked like he was a mob boss or something, or he was working for the mob. That guy always made me nervous too, and he was always he always had his knife out, and you know he would be eating an apple or something like that, or some other kind of fruit. But why did he have to have that knife out? And his one fingernail that was so long, like his pinky finger. Did you notice that, TJ? How long his fingernail?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
That was bizarre too. I just couldn't quit looking at it. You know, as he was, peeling his apple or cutting his apple up, and he kept chewing on it too. He would keep sticking it in his mouth. So him and the guy with the tick, they were two very weird, untrustworthy seeming characters.
Yeah.
But I liked Spiffy. I'm not from the generation that grew up with Laurel and Hardy or anything like that, but I know enough about him to kind of get his impressions and the routine he was doing. I'm not mean to make Steve sound ancient, but he probably knows about Laurel and Hardy more than I do, but a little bit more than I do. But I liked the Spiffy Remo character. I liked him a lot. I thought he was one of the more charming characters. I mean, he's got his temper, and he goes up against these government guys, these government scientists and stuff, and he kind of even pushes against his manager, who you'd have to be pretty brave to do that, because your manager might just cut you off completely.
Well, his name is Pudgy, so I mean, that doesn't sound too intimidating. I mean,
exactly, yeah. And when Spiffy calls it, yeah, well, you know what, Pudgy, he just tells him like it is. But I do really like the Spiffy character, and I think that was one of my favorite characters. I have other favorite characters, but he's one of my favorites from the entire series.
From the dark side.
From the dark side. Yeah, that's exactly right. But yeah, I don't want to give too much away until we want to play it safe and make sure that everybody that's in here, all four of you, that it's okay if we mention it. Now, I see John's mentioning Bud Court, which he was in the last season. Yep, the Snip Snip episode. He says Bud Court is always entertaining. I like that episode. Such a weird dude, but memorable actor. Yeah, I think so too. Clifton says it's my fave show intro. Yeah, there's not too many intros to shows that I can remember, like the Dark Side intro. To me, it seems unique. John says the main guy in this did the voice of Duckworth in DuckTales. Now, I did not know that. Did you know that, TJ? You probably did.
Yeah. He was also, I don't know if anybody, this is really old, from the 70s, the Sid and Monty Croft show. They did like HR Puff and stuff, and
oh yeah,
so Lidsville or something like that with the everybody was a hat and stuff like that. Is weird. There were a lot of weird 70s. So this Electro Woman and Dinah Girl. So there was one called Far Out Space Nuts, and him and Bob Denver, who played not Bob. Wait a minute, Gilligan, John Denver. No, John Denver's the singer. Okay, Bob. That's right. I was right the first time. Bob Denver, who played Gilligan. They're
right.
There are two guys traveling in a spaceship, and they have this like little creature that's like a dog. I just broke everything, and so they're like on a ship that goes to different planets, and it's like a goofy little sci-fi kid show, and I remember him from that. And he's sort of like the skipper. He sort of looks like and kind of acts like the skipper.
Mm-hmm.
From Gilligan's Island, which is kind of weird that they set him up with that guy to do a show together. I don't know if they couldn't get Alan Hill Jr., who played the skipper, to do it or not, but
yeah, maybe he said, I ain't going to do that, so they got this other guy.
But I think he's more like a comedian. I don't know if he's never really never done anything serious as far as anything, but yeah.
And Clifton says, this makes me want to type the intro into the Facebook What's on Your Mind box, Man Lives, etc. Yeah, somebody should do that and just see how many people, pick up on it, what it is and all that. Okay, so I'll go back to TJ and let him, because we gave you warning, guys. We're going to throw these spoilers out. Nobody's screaming yet.
And I'm not going to go through it and put the little time stamps. I don't have time to do that. So, yeah. So he gets to the facility, and one of the other scientists, because we find out Mr. Twitchy is a scientist. I mean, they're all wearing lab coats. So I'm assuming he's a scientist.
Mm.
Played by Dr. See, I'm reading his name. I forgot what his character name was. Dr. Co. Anyway, he's sort of telling Spiffy, "Oh, this is." So we find out the impressionists, they want him to do impressions of an alien. Surprise! So the alien doesn't talk. Has very specific movements that they're trying to emulate, because that's how they are trying to communicate with the alien, is his movements. He makes little noises and stuff like that. So they bring in Spiffy, who is good at impressions, to do an impression, because they've tried. There's a part where we see some video footage of Dr. Co, and the alien gets a little agitated and slaps him, and
he's got a big bandage on his
cheek. So the alien has sort of this I don't know what kind of animal to describe that. He has this sort of power that, like, if he's agitated or upset, he can sort of unleash. I'm gonna guess it's like some kind of electrical.
I didn't know
it seems to burn his face.
Yeah, that's what I thought. It's some kind of burning that he causes. It's like it looks like he kind of slaps them around a little bit, but evidently it must burn them as well.
Yeah, because there's a later scene where the alien kind of brushes against the Spiffy's arm, and he sort of gets a shock, and he's like in pain. So it's got to be some kind of like that kind of. There's some kind of, like I said, it's not specific what it is, but I'm assuming like some kind of electrical, And he's in a spacesuit, and he's sort of like he's blue, but he's sort of like that classic alien with the big head and the long arms. And so he keeps trying to emulate the creature so they can so they can talk, and because this creature has some technical, scientific knowledge. Hi, Blissful. And they're trying to basically use his knowledge, but they have to communicate with the creature first. And Spiffy, he's trying, and he's getting he's gaining some ground, but he's not doing it fast enough for the scientists. Twitchy's like, talking to the other guy, and he's like, look, he ain't doing it. We got to do, something else.
Right.
And yeah, And the other twist is he finally communicates with the creature, and they, the government gets what they want, and he goes back to performing on stage, and he's just kind of doing the same stuff, and he's fed up. And right before the end, he goes outside, and the alien has come back, and they're basically friends now, and he takes him back to his planet. He basically goes back to the spaceship. He gets on the spaceship. They take him back, and that's the end of the episode.
Yep. And I think wasn't it nuclear fusion or something that the scientists were wanting, and hopscotch or whatever they called him.
Hopscotch. Hopscotch. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Hopscotch bagosh, like the.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what ultimately that he had the special power or the knowledge to be able to give them all the secrets of nuclear fusion, and that's all they wanted from him. And so I guess after they got that, they just let him loose and let him go back to his home planet. And then, like TJ said, he comes back for his friend. He comes back for Spiffy, to take him back to his planet, where there's other creatures that probably they all look like him, kind of like the end of E.T. when there were other E.T. like creatures. I mean, they all basically look the same and walk the same and all that. But I didn't find, even when the alien, even when he was getting upset and fearful and striking out at Spiffy at one time and the scientist, I didn't ever find him a frightening character.
No.
He seemed like a scared child or a scared animal. And animals, when frightened, will strike out sometimes. Sometimes they might bite or scratch or, do whatever, in an attempt to escape whatever they're fearful of. So that's what I thought of him as, basically like an animal that's frightened and doesn't know why they're keeping him in a room, and exactly what do they want from me. He had to have been thinking that. So he was a very innocent alien. We're not talking about like the aliens from V here or anything like that. They're not gonna rip their faces off and they're lizard people or whatever.
They're like Close Encounters. They're like that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, these are the more kinder. There was Mike and Me. There was E.T. There was all those, friendly aliens. And then, of course, when V came out, like, I knew I was in for, I know we're getting kind of off topic, but I know with V, I knew that was going to be a little more scarier side of aliens. Did you watch V when it first came out, like the miniseries, TJ?
Yeah, I did.
What do you think of the lizard aliens?
That was a good surprise. I mean, we're thinking they're just like us, because that's like the tagline. They're just like us, type of thing. And they end up being lizard people that are coming here to eat us. Basically, we're their food source. I think they wanted our water, and they wanted to eat us. I think they just wanted our planet.
I think they basically, it was probably a scenario where they had destroyed their planet and wanted to take over ours and, have us as a food source in the process.
That's an interesting show, because Dominique Dunn from Poltergeist, who was killed by her ex-boyfriend, was going to be on the show. She was one of the characters, and they actually filmed some scenes. There's the first episode of V where the aliens land, and there's a wide shot from behind, and it's actually Dominique Dunn's in that scene because her character is still in the story and in the movie. So all the front shots the new actress with the same clothes, and then there's like, I think at least one shot from behind, which is Dominique Dunn. It's just kind of an eerie thing to have her still in the movie, and she was like murdered, and it was just like, ugh. But other than that, once you get through that part, and that's Robert Englund. That's where I think that was the first big thing that people before Freddy knew.
Right, they remember him in,
yeah. Mark Singer was in it. And,
yeah, there were a lot of big people at the time, or people that were up and coming that were just getting ready to break out.
Yeah.
And I don't mean break out with like a rash or anything. I mean like break out as far as their career. John says they could loop that intro in a haunted house and scare the shit out of people with just that. Yeah, that probably would.
Somebody did a YouTube video, and it's like 3-4 hours of the theme over and over again.
Holy cow.
So if you want to find that, you can have it in your background for.
Blitzel says, John, or use it as a doorbell ring. That would be cool too. But something I was going to bring up, since you reminded me about YouTube. Does anybody in here, or does TJ remember many moons ago? I don't know exactly how many years, but it was probably in the early days of Dead Pit. CK did a video with his, like, he started out and his hair was kind of in his face, and he did the intro to Tales from the Darkside. And I would love for him to be in here, because I wanted to ask him if, like, do you recall that? But does anybody in here remember that?
Is that a Patreon exclusive on?
It might be now, but like at first it was, when I first started listening to the show, it was just on the Dead Pit page. And here's something even funnier. Before I even knew who CK and Uncle Bill were, before I even knew about Dead Pit, before I even knew they were from Kentucky, before I knew anything about them, I was looking up stuff on Tales from the Darkside and came across CK's video, but I didn't know who he was. I was like, oh, this is different. Who is this guy? But so.
By the way, this was directed by the He Knows You're Alone dude.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
By the way, you can find that video of CK still on YouTube.
Oh, did you find it?
I searched for it. Yeah, it's right there. It's the thumbnails. He looks very scary.
Yeah, he definitely looks like the creepy Kentuckian there, don't he?
that was a long time ago, before he lost a lot of weight.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm yelling. The camera's right here, but whatever. If I'm yelling, tell me, by the way, because I can't hear myself properly.
I didn't think you were yelling. I probably sound like I'm screaming at everybody sometimes too. Clifton says he'd like to see CK doing that. Well,
look for it.
It's on the page. It's out there. Clifton says, "Oh, it's on YouTube." Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, this brings us to the next episode. And when I was talking about like hokey and silly, Life Bomb is one of those kind of hokey, silly things, because they didn't really have the special effects, the ability to make really good special effects. Probably if this was done now, if they redid the Tales from the Darkside series now and they had this Life Bomb episode, they could do it quite a bit better. So I'm going to let TJ take the reins and talk a little bit about Life Bomb.
So episode 2, Life Bomb, is about a business guy who's, workaholic. He's an older guy, doesn't take care of himself, ignores his wife, ignores his family. Though he's doing it under the guise of, he wants something to be there for them if he ever dies. And he's got lot of medical issues. I'm dying here. Wait a minute. Excuse me.
No, I may have to get up and get me another Mountain Dew because this part of whatever is going on with me, my voice goes in and out sometimes.
So yeah, so this this guy comes in, says he's works for his insurance company, and they have this device which, if he wears it, it'll protect him. It'll give him oxygen. It'll give him any medical attention he needs. It'll basically take care of him until the paramedics come and can hook him up to a machine if it comes to that. And he starts to rely on it a little too much, and that's where the trouble starts. And it's a pretty simple episode. I mean, what happens from there on, I'd say it's a bit of a spoiler, but it has I think it's a creepy episode.
Some parts of it, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this guy who works for the company who controls the life bomb, that's the thing too. It's sort of like the insurance company owns it, but these people who created it, and they were trying to use it to better man, help people, but it turned into just sort of a, well, that'll be a spoiler if I say what it was really used for. But yeah, anyway. But anyway, go ahead.
Did you want to mention anything else before I say anything, TJ?
Well, the main character is Bill Macy. I don't know if anybody ever watched the show Maude with B. Arthur. He played her husband on that show, Walter, and he's been around for a long. He was around for a long time. He did a lot of things too. I can't. Oh, he was in The Jerk, and he was in Surviving Christmas. He did some, older people. He did some TV in his later years. There was some. Yeah, he was in the. What else did he? I thought he did something else that was a big.
The name Bill Macy sounds, and I might be thinking about William H. Macy or something.
Yeah, not the same person.
You're right, exactly.
But he did mostly TV, but like he did one or two movies. Well, it's funny not to get off topic, but in The Impressionist, the other scientist played by Bobby DeCicco, he was in a lot of 80s and 90s stuff. He was in Ghoulies 4, and he was in Splash. He was in Steven Spielberg's 1941. He was in Maniac Cop 3. So actually, if you're a genre fan, especially 80s, the younger people in Tales from the Darkside, you probably can see him in a lot of these movies and stuff. The guy who was the Mr. Twitchy, he was. I don't remember if he had like an actual role, but I know he was one of like the guys who got killed in 7. He's one of the deadly sins. I think he was Greed.
Okay.
But I don't remember.
Since I watched 7, I need to go back and watch it because I remember liking that movie. It's just for whatever reason I haven't went back and watched it.
But anyway,
I got to bring this up here because, hey, Dirk, he says he's watching Snuff for the first time. Oh, okay. I'll tell you, I felt. I'm not going to give anything away if you're still watching it, Dirk, but just beware. By the end of it, I felt. I don't know. I didn't want to see like a real snuff film, and I knew that's not what this was, but I just felt ripped off at the end just because it was so cheesy, and that's all I'm gonna say. I think they could have done it a little better, but that's all I'll say about it. Just
did you want it to be an actual snuff?
No, I did not.
Okay.
I just wanted. I'll just say, the special effects could have been better.
It was directed by a porn director. I mean,
I know.
And his wife?
Wasn't
his wife / girlfriend? What?
Wasn't that done by the Finleys? Michael.
Yeah. Roberta Finley's husband, or ex-husband. Yeah. She did one of my favorite Christmas movies, The Oracle.
See, I don't think I've ever seen The Oracle. I need to give that one a try.
It's
Uh,
weird.
so Clifton says he's never heard of snuff. Honestly, Clifton, you're probably not missing anything with that movie. Um, John says, anytime I see a recorded VHS at Goodwill, I think, what's on this? Yeah. I think I told this story before, but back when I was working in my first library job, somebody returned a VHS that was, it had a suspicious title on it. You know, it seemed like it could be one of those porno titles or something. I
Hmm.
mean, it didn't have any explicit words or, like that in it, but we never did put it in a VCR and watch it and see what it was. It stayed in the lost and found for a while, and then they probably just nixed it. They probably threw it in a dumpster somewhere or
That's a
something.
good idea. Yeah. Remember what happened in um, 7 Days.
Exactly.
Don't
Yeah.
watch any strange
Yeah,
videos. You don't know what you're
don't
gonna
watch
find.
it. Of course, that was in the days before the ring, so didn't know any better then. We somebody could have watched it, but I don't think anybody ever did.
Yeah.
Um, so
So
yeah,
anyway, we were back to Life Bomb. Sorry.
yeah, back to Life Bomb. We're gonna rewind it a little bit. Um, so what I was talking about with the hokey and kind of silly um, was the actual life bomb. I mean, first of all, the guy's got a big square or rectangle thing on his back.
Yeah.
No, this was not in the days where like now people can have uh, insulin pumps and uh, and stuff like that, and they're real
A
good.
1980 cell phone was this big back then, so figure that out. Hello.
Exactly. Can you imagine somebody like trying to stuff that in their pocket or something like that? You just can't do it. So not only does he have that, but when he has a heart attack or something like that, it basically explodes. This
Mhm.
thing on his back does, and then it looks. I kid you not. It looks like streamers. It looks like party streamers or paper mache or something. Paper mache is probably what it is,
Probably was, yeah.
and it just seems to go all over him, and then it's supposed to harden, or that's the way the guy working for the insurance company kind of describes it. And it can give him oxygen, it could give him drugs, it can give him, all these things until the paramedics can arrive and take care of him. So it basically keeps him, I guess, in suspended animation until somebody can actually work on him
Yeah.
and fix him. Um, but even though I'm pretty sure the guy working with the insurance company was not a bad guy at heart, he just seemed suspicious to me all the time. I didn't
Mhm.
entirely trust this guy. Not that he was gonna like kill you, like I said, the twitchy guy did in the impressionist episode, but there was something like there was an undercurrent of something going on there where I didn't completely trust this guy. Um, I think I'm not going to go too much into it, but I'll just say I think he was bitter at the hand he'd been dealt a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know. Like the wife. I want to talk about the wife here for a second. Bill Macy's wife in the episode. TJ, did you think she was a little bit overly bitchy? I know he wasn't spending enough time with her and he wasn't tending to her needs and all that stuff. But like, I don't know. Just seemed to, if she really loved him, I would think she would try to work with him more. And she just seemed kind of cold
I think
toward him.
the issue with that is we're getting her after years of him ignoring her in the family, so she's already upset. We're not getting her transition slowly into being upset. She's already pissed off at him from the get-go. And I'm sure he said a million times, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that and I'm gonna make sure that I'm gonna pay attention, and I'm sure he's canceled trips and he's left her at restaurants alone, and you know,
or said he'd meet her there and he never shows up.
Yeah, I mean, I think she's already fed up, and he's promising her again that this new thing it's gonna make things better and it's gonna change him, and that's where sort of the twist comes, where he starts changing things in his life, but then he goes back to his old ways because he's like, oh, see, I'm better now. But then, like I said, he gets too dependent on this thing, and then he's just, because they tell him, look, you know, you're gonna have a heart attack and die if you don't calm down. They say this at the beginning, and then that's the whole thing for the reason for the life bomb. Mm-hmm. And the life bomb is supposed to make sure you don't make yourself crazy. You're making yourself slow down and take better care of yourself. That's what the life bomb is supposed to do, but he doesn't do that. Mm-mm. He just he's like, oh, he's using it as a crutch. He's like, see, every time I get a palpitation or feel something in my arm, this life bomb will take over.
Right.
But he just keeps making him worse. And his wife's like, hey, you promised me you were going to get better, and now you're just making yourself sick. And it's like, she has a choice. She's just going to stay with this guy who's just going to keep making things worse for himself and ruining everybody else's life. I mean, leave him.
Yeah. And I see that part of it. There's no way that they could have, you know, however many years that they were married in a 22-minute episode.
Yeah.
And
was she bitchy? Yes. Does she have a reason? Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So let's see. John says, anyone see season 1 of True Detective? I did see season 1 of True Detective. He says that's the kind of tape I'd hate to see. The show showed just enough of it to be really eerie and horrible. Yeah, from what I can remember. Yeah, I feel like it's been a lifetime though since I watched that first season of that. I mean, at that time, I think me and Steve were watching a bunch of different shows, that and Fargo, and there were several others. Now I just have to say I got to pick and choose wisely, because I don't see how anybody watches every one of these shows that are out. There are so many damn shows out now. It's not like when we were kids.
Yeah. There's so many channels, and every channel has their own. They just, what is that right-wing conservative channel? They just did a Roseanne episode, comedy special, because they want to branch out and start doing specials and movies. I'm like, are you serious, Miss?
I saw that advertisement for the Roseanne thing, and I mean, I wasn't really interested in watching it. I mean, I like Roseanne. Yeah, I like her sitcom stuff. But honestly, I never was really interested in her stand-up comedy type of deals.
I did like her first couple of, if you watch some of her stand-up, you know, the ones that got her the show. I mean, she did the Carson show, and I think that's sort of what people saw, and they said, oh, Carson likes her and she's really good. And up until that point, but I know this was just going to be her, because I think one of the lines that they previewed, that she's like, my pronouns are kiss my ass, and I'm like, oh, it's going to be about that. It's like, it's not going to be funny. It's going to just be her. I mean, I don't want to get all political, but it's just going to be her talking about, you know, Trump, and then that Sarah Gilbert got me off my show. I'm like, who wants to hear that crap? I mean, if you want to be entertained and funny, that's what it's here for. Not to be like, I'm just gonna spew my agenda because, you know, I'm like,
yeah,
it's like, whatever.
Evidently she didn't learn from any past mistakes. She's just gonna keep.
And she's rich. She has money. It's not like, you know, people are like, oh, she lost her show. Like, well, she didn't lose Like, she didn't lose her millions of dollars that she has in the bank. I mean,
nope.
But whatever. Let's get off Roseanne. Anyway.
Yeah. Let no politics, like TJ always says. Like,
even though I just started with it. Let's get back to Tales from the Darkside and stuff.
We'll get back to.
That was my Roseanne impression.
Life bomb. Do you want to talk any about the actual twist to this one, TJ? Warning, guys.
So yeah, warning. So the twist is basically the insurance company has the life bomb, so they don't have to pay people out, and they're going to keep him alive forever. Right. So he doesn't. So they don't have to give his family or anybody any money. That's basically the twist. He's basically trapped, and by this point, his wife's left him. His kids, his kid doesn't want to talk to him. His everything's suffering, and he's basically screwed. And that's the twist. That he thought this thing was going to be there to help him out, but he got too dependent on it, and sorry.
And so he's literally just laying in a hospital bed from his last heart episode or whatever, and he's saying no, and he actually says, "I just want to die."
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is, he can't die. He won't ever die.
Sorry, Charlie.
Yep. As long as the life bomb people are around, he will never die.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I could see, if this was a real thing, I could totally see insurance companies taking advantage of that.
Oh, yeah.
Because the last thing an insurance company wants to do is pay for anything and pay out any money. So if they could keep people alive forever, they'd do that. But, I'm not trying to get religious or anything or browbeat anybody, but if you believe in God, in a God, then I don't think that the God that I believe in would allow that to happen, to allow people to live forever. Evidently, because he's got other plans for us. So anyway, I'll get off the religious stuff and we'll move right along to. This is one of my favorite episodes too of the series. It's Ring Around the Redhead, starring John Hurd.
Yeah, this is more fun than the last episode.
Yes, it is. So I'll let TJ start out talking about it.
All right, so we're on death row with a guy named Billy, and he's telling a story about why he's there. This reporter is there, and she's like, we want your part of the story. We want to tell, your situation, what happened from your point of view. So he starts telling her this tale that's hard to believe. This sort of fissure opens up in his apartment, and he finds this girl that comes out of nowhere, basically. She's from another world, another dimension. Yeah, she's from another. That's right. She's from another dimension. Her name is Keena, and her and Billy start developing a friendship. Meanwhile, there's this. I forget what happens with the guy, with his friend.
Jimbo.
Yeah, Jimbo. He's got this sort of this sneaky, conniving, this kind of.
Yeah, I never did trust that guy either.
Yeah, he's the
one I didn't trust.
He's what you call a dick. A
dangerous dick at that.
So he starts talking to Keena, and he basically has to teach her how to talk because she doesn't know English. And he starts, teaching her about the world, his world, and meanwhile, Jimbo comes over and he notices these jewels that Keena brings, which are basically, in her world, they're just like toys and little trinkets that the kids play with.
Children play with these.
But in our world, they're jewels, and Jimbo wants the money, basically, and I don't. If you say he blackmails, I guess he sort of blackmails
I
Billy
think
to an
I think
extent.
threatens is more.
Well, yeah. Okay. Well,
Some point he threatens. Uh, but we'll get to that.
so there's this ring that is used to basically transport Kina from her world, and you can transport. It's basically it's this big ring, and it's a portal into any other universes. And Jimbo steals this basically, and Jimbo starts going into different worlds and messing around, and he gets to a point where he pulls a person's arm from through the portal, and the arm gets severed, and that doesn't go over well with some people, and that's sort of where it ends before you start really the spoilers happen. But yeah,
Right.
up until that point.
Yeah, and like I said, this is one of my favorite episodes.
And
I
John
like,
Hurd from the dad from Home Alone plays
yes,
Billy.
who's sadly no longer with us
Yeah.
anymore, which I was bummed out about that when I heard about that. But he's great in this episode. I mean, he's great in movies. Not only was he in Home Alone, but he was also in Big with Tom Hanks. He was pretty much Tom Hanks' adversary at the toy company.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's another story for another day about that. But I just wanted to say that John Hurd is a great actor, even on the small screen, even in this 22-minute episode, he really shines, I think. And do you know what the girl's name was that played Keena? Do you know what her real name is?
Penelope Ann Miller.
Now that sounds familiar. The name
He was
does.
in Kindergarten Cop.
It's been a while since I've seen Kindergarten Cop.
Okay. Well, I can look up other movies that I don't know what else she's been in besides that. Because she's sort of the Schwarzenegger's like the girl he sort of likes. Did you ever see The Relic? It was a 1990 monster movie.
I think
where she
so.
played a scientist. She was in the TV series The Closer. She was in, let's see.
She just seems, the name and her her face and stuff seems very familiar to me. Not as familiar as John Hurd, but
she did a lot of stuff. She was just on that Dahmer story.
Okay.
The American Horror Story dude. She was on Riverdale. She did a lot of TV.
She's done quite a bit of stuff. But I liked too the way that her and John Hurd played off of each other. They were almost like they had a real friend relationship. Although in the episode, did you feel like there were starting to be kind of a romantic relationship with them? I think he was.
Yeah, I think it was pretty obvious that they
Yeah,
were.
he was a gentleman, because I know there's the one scene where she's asleep, or he wakes her up in the morning and he's brought her a sundress, and because he says, you guys dress differently than we dress, so I got you something where, I guess so you'll blend in. And she just jumps up out of the bed, and she's obviously naked. We don't see that, but he's like, whoa, wait, wait a minute. So he's trying to be a gentleman, and he's trying not to look, and he's handing her the dress, and then he pulls some panties out of there too. He says, she'll need these too. So I guess she just stark naked just jumps out of bed. She has a very childlike innocence.
Yeah. It's very Splash. If you've seen Splash, it's sort of the same thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if they did this episode before Splash. Somebody watched this and said, "Hey, Let's get a mermaid and Daryl Hannah and Tom Hanks and make a movie.
Exactly. And she also he brings something called veal Marengo, and because he's worried that she hasn't eaten anything since he discovered her. And so he's going to pop it in the microwave. And she said, no, leave it cold. And she's eating this frozen veal Marengo.
Veal Marengo stickle, yes.
Yeah, he said, I'd have known you would like it cold, which is kind of an odd little thing to say. I don't know how he would have, but anyway, those cute little, some people might think it's sappy, but those cute little interactions between the two of them, I really liked. It was, it was just refreshing because, believe it or not, a lot of the Tales from the Darkside episodes are a little bit darker. Yeah. And this did have a little bit of some dark elements in it, but it's centered on Keena's and Billy's relationship, their growing friendship, and
they have good chemistry together.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. That's part of what made this episode work so well. I think if you had put anybody else in those roles, I don't think it would have worked as well.
Yeah, that's why when they have a movie that's like 2 hours and you have like two main characters that are supposed to be in love, and it just is like they don't even look like they like each other, much less are in love. I mean,
yeah, it's like they barely look at each other and no, no chemistry at all. It's just a flat, pretty much a flat performance.
There's a movie called War of the Roses with Kathleen Turner and who else is in that? I forget the guy who's in it. I know Danny DeVito's in it. Anyway, they're supposed to be divorced, and they're bitter divorce. Like they love each other. All of a sudden, she hates him. She hates everything about him, and he wants to get back with her, and she just hates him. And by the end of I don't want to spoil the movie, but it's not a happy ending. But it's. But their chemistry, their hate chemistry is really good. Like they have the opposite of like, the chemistry. It's usually, it's people in a relationship that love each other, but they're like, because he sort of wants to get her back, but he's still pissed as hell at her, but she's more upset. But their chemistry as together as a couple is really.
Don't you think it's funny? Don't you think it's funny sometimes when people do have really good chemistry on screen? You could really believe they were in love or really believe they were married. And then, behind the scenes, you hear something, not in a tabloid, but, in something that you can trust, an interview or something somebody's done with one of the people. And they say, I hated them. I hated them all through that movie. I could not stand them. And it's like, man, that's got to be the mark of a good or great actor or actress. If you can, put aside the fact that you can't stand this person you're acting opposite with.
And there's chemistry, and then there's really good acting where you can act like you have chemistry.
Exactly. So John says, he says, yeah, I like that movie a lot, Michael
Douglas, thank you. Yeah. I was like, who is that guy? Because they did Romancing the Stone together, and they're the opposite of War of the Roses, and I think they work really well on both ways. And so, yeah.
So Blissful read the book. She didn't watch.
Yeah, I know there's differences. I don't remember what they were, the major.
So
anyway,
I guess we'll spoiler alert again, guys. I'll let TJ talk a little bit about the twist in this episode.
So after Jimbo pulls the arm off the guy, he starts messing around in other universes, and I forget what they call them, the elders or something like that.
I think so.
Basically, Keena's like, these people are they communicate with her, and they're like, they're not happy. They're not going to be happy, and they're gonna cause some trouble. Well, they cause trouble. So we find most of this out from Billy talking to the reporter, where he's like, yeah, so Jimbo is just like freaking out, and he wants to get rid of the ring, but he can't destroy it. It's sort of like the Book of the Dead. He can't destroy it. He can't get rid of it. It keeps coming back. Like Talkie Tina from the Twilight Zone episode.
Exactly.
And they basically, he tells them the elders or whatever come, and he's having a conversation with Jimbo, and he's like, Jimbo, stop. Jimbo was talking, but no words were coming out. And this cloud enveloped him and crushed him. And that's where we find out why Billy's in jail, because they think Billy killed the neighbor, because all that's left, there's no body, but there's like pieces of skull and body fragments. And so that's why he's in jail on death row, because they think he killed his neighbor, when it was the elders who basically, they took Keena away, and they killed Jimbo. And so Billy's in the electric chair, and there's one scene where the reporter asks if he really loved her, or he was just sort of like, I forget exactly what her, what she was asking. Oh damn, yeah. Anyway,
you say what would you say to Keena if she
right. Or would you say that? Right. I forget what he said.
That's what I'm trying to remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can't remember it. Oh, that's bad. Because I basically just rewatched that episode. So
yeah. Anyway, we're gonna be stuck here for this. So anyway, but it comes down to, I guess, basically he loves her or whatever. It's more than that. There was like some kind of like poetic thing he said, but basically he's like, he loves her, and what wishes things could have been different or whatever. I don't know. But anyway, so he's put in the electric chair. He's get the hood put over him, and they throw the switch, and everything goes dark, and we find out Billy's well, it actually that's not happened. Time stands still, and Keena comes out of the darkness and takes the bag off of Billy's head and says, "Hey, I'm here. Hey." And she tells him that she told the elders how much she cared about him and that she couldn't live without him, basically. So they came back they realized, it wasn't him, it was Jimbo. And Keena basically says, all right, you're gonna come with me, and we're gonna go back to my universe. And then she takes him away, and the lights go back on, and he's gone, and everybody's shocked. And the reporter she's like, the story isn't about death row. The story is about Billy, who's there 1 minute and next he's gone.
And about a love story.
It's about a love story. It's not about, a murder and a guy on death row. So it's kind of a sweet ending. Poor Jimbo, but Jimbo was a dick, and that's what you get.
He deserved it. So it's like
it's kind of a happy ending, because they get to go off together and be in love and live their life and be
inventors. Because
that's what I forgot. Right, they were both there. She was an inventor in her world and her way, and then he was an inventor in his. I think that was the thing with Jimbo, with him and his inventions that weren't really working out and stuff like that, or he wasn't.
He wasn't
like like blackmailing stuff. So it's a fun little episode.
Yeah,
we didn't get to see any of the skull fragments. I thought would be cool. But,
or the severed arm.
We didn't get to see any of that. We only hear it through Billy's talking about it. But
which for a show like this, I think that totally works though, because we can. Sometimes people will say if you don't show something in a movie or a television show, what
Mhm.
the mind can conceive is sometimes more gruesome than anything they could show you
Yeah.
on the screen. So I'm sure many people watching that episode were conjuring up images of skull fragments and severed arms and all of that, and even the death of Jimbo as well. Because
Yeah.
I could kind of visualize that as Billy, the character of Billy, was talking about it. Um, but when I said that Jimbo not only blackmails, he threatens. When blackmailing doesn't work, he goes to threats because there's one scene where he's saying that he wants that ring, and Billy's
Yeah.
telling him Keena needs it to get back, because at that point he thinks she does need that ring to get back. He finds out later she could go back. The elders would get her back anyway, even
Yeah.
without the ring. So he's being resistant to Jimbo taking the ring. And so Jimbo just pulls back his jacket a little bit, and you can see he's got a gun.
Yeah.
Uh, so that's what I meant by like he goes from blackmailing to threatening to get what he wants. And then it kind of, blows up in his face and ends up with his death ultimately.
Too
And
bad.
it'd be a pretty gruesome death if you got skull fragments laying around afterwards.
It's ripping people's arms off. What do you expect?
What do you expect? Hey, Menelect. Um, so yeah, a really good episode. Without the Jimbo stuff and the death row talk,
Yeah.
execution talk, it's pretty much a more lighthearted episode, and I really enjoy it. Um, Anything else you want to bring up about that one, TJ?
No, we're good with that one.
Okay. So the next episode,
Yes.
Parlor Floor Front. And
Talk about bitchy characters
yes, exactly.
who are this wife is she's so bad. Like we were talking about the life bomb wife.
Yeah,
She's a sweetheart angel of mercy compared to this woman. This woman's terrible, terrible, terrible.
This woman's evil, I think.
So it's about this young couple. They buy this brownstone, and they're like they're gonna redo it, and they're gonna make it like it used to be back in the day. They're gonna turn it. It was one of those. They used to be a house, and then they made it into multi apartments, and now it's gonna be turned back. They want to turn it into a house, but there's one hitch. They have a tenant, Mars Gillis, who is on the lease, and he cannot be thrown out. But so they bought out all the other tenants, but Mars will not go. And he's not a bad guy. He's not doing it. He's basically an older guy. He has nowhere else to go.
Yeah, he doesn't have anywhere else to go.
Yeah, he has his sister, but I don't think she can really support him because she's older too. Played by I don't know if anybody knows Family Matters with Urkel, the grandmother. She played the grandmother in Family Matters. She's done a lot of TV. She was on that show with Nell Carter. Give Me a Break. She played Nell Carter's. I know all the sitcoms she was in. So
that's a good thing, I think. I love sitcoms.
And Mars is played by Adolph Caesar, who he was in The Color Purple. He played the father character, the crotchety old father in that. But people might know his voice. The Day of the Dead trailer. He did the voiceover for the Day of the Dead trailer.
I could definitely
sort of gravelly, but like suave, gravelly type of like a grunty, He did a few trailer things because I guess
he has that trailer voice, and I don't mean like trailer trash voice. I mean like movie trailers.
I think it was. I guess I don't know if he did radio or not. He might have done radio. I don't know, but he did the Blackula trailer, and he did Dawn of the Dead. He did the Sleepaway Camp. So he did all the horror, a lot of the horror trailers. And
Oh, so he did Sleepaway Camp too?
He did the Sleepaway Camp trailer.
Oh, awesome.
But yeah, when I was watching, I was like, this guy looks familiar. And then I watched one of those YouTube watch along people. They had just watched The Color Purple, and I was like, that's the same guy from the episode of Tales from the Darkside. I just realized it's the same guy. Yeah, so Linda and Doug are the new tenants, and Linda is pissed off that Mars will not leave, and she's like, everybody else left, and he's like, I don't have anywhere to go, bitch. I'm sorry, but and she just hates the fact that he's there. She hates the fact that he won't leave. But the husband's a little bit more. He's like, it's in the lease, and you can't make him go. It's a law, basically. You can't throw him out if he doesn't want to go. And
he evidently had been the janitor in that building before either of them were born. The husband mentions that.
Yeah, and the big thing is it's the parlor floor front basically means it's the parlor. It's when you walk into a house and there's the place, the living area where you come and you visit and you have family and whatever.
Have tea if you drink tea or coffee, I guess.
Yeah, it's not like it's a room off in the corner. It's like you come into the house and this is. So she's pissed off that like, hey, this is the best part. But so besides her being bitchy, we find out that Mars is he's a little bit into the witchcraft voodoo. But he's not a bad guy. He does it for nice reasons. Like he helps people who are in trouble. He protects people who are already cursed.
Yeah.
So he basically takes the evil from other people and sort of absorbs it, and sort of like well, I don't know if it's spoiling it mentioning this movie that it reminds me of. Maybe I'll mention that in the spoiler part. But I'm trying to. The other two, like the wife. Well, she's in Air Force One.
She looked vaguely familiar to me.
She plays the press secretary in Air Force One. She did a bunch of TV too. Like a lot of these people, they did maybe one or two movies and they did a lot of TV.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't really because she looks familiar.
Mm-hmm.
But and then Doug did two movies. Oh well. Doug did Death Mask from.
Oh, he did.
From 1984. Did anybody seen that movie? I think I've seen that. I saw that a long time ago.
I don't think I've seen it, but I've heard of it.
Danny Aiello, another Tales from the Darkside alum, was in it. Sam Levine, who was in the Odds, he was also in it. Oh, I think a lot of the cast from Tales from the Darkside were in a lot of movies together. Interesting. That's funny. I guess the old Italian guys.
Yeah,
they probably got stuck.
Used a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, you stick them in the same movies because basically that's where you're going to put all the Italian movies, the Italian actors in the Soprano type movies and TV shows and whatever. But anyway, so let's get back to the story. So we find out he's a little into the voodoo. So they start. So they decide. Hey, since we have him here, we can't get rid of him. Let's have him help us. Redo the house, because that's another thing with his lease. He only has to spend like $85 a month for rent, and this is like prime real estate area where they're probably paying like hundreds, if not maybe 1,000 or two for their apartment. And she's also pissed off at that. It's like he's doing it for nothing. And practically nothing. He's living there, and we're getting screwed. And so Doug's like, let's get him to help out. We'll give him a little money. And she's like, great, we'll give him money. That's terrific. She's a bitch.
She's a very disagreeable, and we're gonna when we get to the spoiler part, you're gonna find out she's pretty much an evil bitch.
So anyway, little things start happening. Like Doug breaks his arm. Like something falls, and then she falls off a ladder, and she's like, so they're talking, and she's like, I think something's going on in this house, and I'm afraid of Mars because I think he cursed us, and we're being cursed. And then we find out that she tells him, I didn't just fall off the ladder. I was pregnant, and I lost the baby. And then she tells Mars and basically, hey, you killed my baby, and he's very upset about that, and that's where I'll stop.
Not only does she say that Mars killed her baby, she keeps claiming too that she was pulled off the ladder, that she could feel hands pulling. She keeps telling her husband that. She keeps telling Doug that.
Oh, and a pet died too. I forget there was a pet.
Yeah, the cat died, and when we get to some of the more spoilery things, I'm gonna talk a little bit more about that. But yeah, I agree with TJ that the wife is a real bitch. There is nothing that I like. I didn't like this woman, the character. I'm sure that the real woman's a very fine person, but this character I didn't like from the first moment I saw her, because she's bitching and complaining as soon as her husband enters the room where she's filling in cracks in the wall. She starts complaining. She starts complaining about Mars and how he's, ruining things for him. And you want to say, especially when you see Mars, it's like, how is this guy running your life? I mean, can't you just leave him alone, let him be, let him pay his $85 or $95 of rent? And obviously the two of them had money, or they couldn't have, invested in this whole building like that, minus the parlor floor front.
Yeah.
So I didn't even like the way she treated her husband. I don't think she treated her husband very well.
There might have been like a brief second or two, but there were no real like passionate moments where you're on her. She gets you on her side because she's like, maybe she's not as bad. No, she's just bad.
She's a bad apple.
Yes.
But we were talking about people not having chemistry. I don't think her and the guy that played Doug have any chemistry. It's like, I find it hard to believe that they're a couple.
Yeah, but it fits the episode, definitely.
It does fit the episode. Yeah, and me being the animal lover that I am, when she finds the cat dead, I was like, oh man, because I'll be honest, that looked like a real dead cat. I don't know if they sedated a real cat, because they've been known to do that in movies and television shows, to slightly sedate an animal so that it looks like a real dead animal. Of course, it won't be moving. It would be breathing, but generally we're not paying that much attention to it. You see something laying there, it looks like a dead cat. It must be a dead cat in our head. So I was like, oh, poor kitty cat, And that was basically the only animal you see in this particular episode. It's not like they had 5 dogs like me and Steve have in our house and assorted other animals. They had the one cat. So I didn't like that. I didn't like the reveal of the dead cat. But I never do. I always say you can kill as many people as you want in a horror movie, fakely. Don't really.
Yeah.
But when you start killing off animals, that, even though most of the time that is fake unless you're out in the Amazon jungles making a cannibal movie, and then
Yeah.
it's pretty much realistic animal cruelty.
Yeah, not like in Reanimator, where you could, that Rufus is definitely, when it's dead, a fake cat.
Yeah, but I even
Or
like,
Smile.
yeah,
That
I
cat was so.
felt bad for those animals as well, even though I knew it was obviously fake.
Yeah.
Steve sometimes tells me, and he's a animal lover too, especially dogs. Dogs are Steve's jam. He loves them. Um, but he'll tell me, he'll say, Dana, you know it's not real, right? I said, I know it's not real, but you're talking about a person that got upset in that scene in American Psycho when he stuffs the cat in the ATM or whatever he does. You remember that, TJ?
I actually haven't seen that all the way through.
Oh, okay. Oops, sorry.
No, it's okay. I mean, I know the ending, and I know I know the gist of it. Like, I haven't seen 7 all the way through, but I know the kills, and I know the surprise at the end. And it's like, yeah, okay.
Gotcha. So I'm gonna let TJ first talk about the little twist. Spoiler alert again. I need something that comes up on the screens like ding 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 ding. Spoiler alert.
I know.
Spoiler alert in 10 seconds.
Every time I hold this up, there's spoilers coming. There we go. People aren't gonna know that. They're just gonna go, "Why is he holding up a videotape?" But anyway.
Yeah, what?
Like if that was the thumbnail, that would be great. All right, so yeah, so dead cat, broken arm, loss of a baby. So Mars is very upset because he didn't want any of this to happen. He didn't, he didn't really want to hurt anybody. But we find out the next day that he committed suicide because of everything, because he felt, because of the baby was the big trip, and he's like, yeah. So yeah, so he's dead.
And
And
that was sorry, TJ. I just want to interject one thing here. This is what I was talking about when I said gruesome. That Tales from the Darkside did get away with a few gruesome scenes, and they literally do, because when Mars commits suicide, he hangs himself.
Yeah.
And what basically happens is Doug comes downstairs to the parlor floor front.
Yeah.
And it's very shocking the way they do this, because they show his sister crying, and she's dressed like she's been to a funeral already. And so at first you think she's crying because they found him dead and they had a funeral and somehow Doug didn't know or whatever. But no, then they pan to he's still hanging there and she's sitting there in the chair just crying. I just thought that was so eerie and gruesome.
Well, that's like I'm sure she just came over there all the time. So, and she had a key, and she found him there. I mean, that's that alone, finding somebody in that situation. I don't even want to imagine that. It's just
no.
Yeah. So yeah, he committed suicide because he felt terrible with what happened. But that's not the worst part. We find out little Miss Linda faked everything. Not everything. There was he broke the arm breaking, I think was the
Yeah, that was just an accident.
That was an accident, but the she didn't fall off the ladder. She probably poisoned the cat. And the worst one, she was never pregnant to begin with. Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
So she faked all that just so he would leave. But so she basically caused everything after the arm broken. She caused everything to happen. Now, that's one twist.
Yep.
Next, we find Doug goes to give his respects to the sister who's in the at the does the casket and whatever, because the wake's in the house, obviously, because they had no money, they couldn't go to a funeral home. So anyway, there's a little box there, and it has all the because as payment, Mars never collected money, but he would collect jewelry and stuff. Now he would never sell it, but he just collected it as sort of a payment for his spells and using his powers. And he noticed his wife's ring, because she gave it to him earlier on to get him to take the curse off of the family. And he wants the ring back, but the sister's like, no, all that stuff is full of evil. It's full of evil. It's cursed. You can't touch it, or the evil will come and try to claim its property back. So Linda's like, I don't want my ring buried with that man. And that's when he finds out, the husband finds out that she faked everything. So he basically is like, screw you guys, I'm going home. She pulls a cart. He pulls a cart, and then he's basically, yeah. He's like, you're a horrible, terrible person. I don't know why I'm with you. I'm out of here. I don't know if they had to consolidate the house or whatever, but yeah, he left. He ran out of there. He's like, he packed a little bag. She's begging him, no, don't go. I'm like, I'm a little too late. Miss Emotional all of a sudden. And she's alone, and she's like, I'm not letting my ring be buried, because like that's all she has basically is the ring left after everything that happened. So she goes to claim the ring. She sneaks down, grabs the ring, goes back up to her apartment. And that's when she's sleeping in her bed that night, and guess what? Mars wants his ring back. So in a very Father's Day from Creepshow, Nathan Grantham, he doesn't want his cake. He starts, I want my ring. I want my
That's exactly
ring.
what I thought of too, TJ, when I was rewatching this, was that Father's Day episode from Creepshow.
Yeah, it's very like a lot. I've noticed a lot of, so they're supposed to, they're Tales from the Crypt stories that have these twists, and sort of I'm not saying they're all the same episodes, but a lot of stuff you recognize from prior episodes. So I see a lot of Creepshow throughout the 4 seasons of Tales from the Darkside, even if it's like repeated all the time. Even so they'd have transition music in between the commercials, and it would be just like da-dun, da-dun, da-dun. If you watch Creepshow, that sound is peppered out through the movie. So
exactly.
Anyway, so Mars wants his ring back, and he's climbing the stairs, and it's very like also like from Something to Tide Me Over from Creepshow, where you see the feet. You don't see his face. You see his feet walking up the stairs, and he wants his ring. He's walking up the stairs. He walks into the room, and she sees him, and she basically dies of fright. And the last, that's another thing. There's always like a last shot. The last shot is her sort of contorted in the bed, just like looking up.
Right.
And he got his ring back, and she got dead. So.
Yeah, and I think that was, within the confines of this episode, that was justly deserved. I think she got, for causing so much heartache, for causing a guy to commit suicide, we're pretty sure she killed her own cat, for faking a pregnancy and letting her husband believe for way too long that she was pulled off a ladder because of some curse, and that's how she lost a baby that never even existed. I mean, how cruel can you be to do that? How cruel and spiteful. So, when I was talking about animals being killed, Blissful says she can't. can't deal with that. And Clifton says, as long as animals live in the movies, anyone agree? Yeah, pretty much, Clifton. I do agree with that. Like I said, as long as you're not really out there killing people, you can kill as many people as you want fakely. I say fakely because I don't want anybody, hearing this secondhand and take it completely out of context, saying, "Oh, Dana wants to kill a bunch of people." No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if you could do it in a fake way for a horror movie or
If you
something.
go to an hour and 37 minutes, you'll get Dana saying, no.
TJ will give a timestamp for that. So, anyway, moving right along is another one of my favorite episodes, and it has to do with Halloween.
Oh, this is another
Again,
ending. This is another good ending in this one. Oof.
yeah, and it's a kind of gruesome, but we'll get to that. I'm going to let TJ talk about it first.
Well, we have Halloween Candy, directed by Tom Savini, our good friend Tom Savini, who also created the monster in it. That's not much of a spoiler because there's a monster in it. It's Tales from the Darkside, for crying out loud. But the monster, if you look at the face, it looks very familiar. It was the Fluffy from the crate monster. It's I don't know. I think it might just be the face, and they basically put it in. It looks like it's sort of like a dwarf elf, Lord of the Rings type of.
Mm-hmm.
But it's got little bells on its feet,
It's
so it's
definitely
it's like a court jester. It's that kind. It's more like that.
right.
But it's a little creature. And so anyway, so it's about this crusty old. Now, if anybody's ever seen the movie Trick or Treat with Sam, this is very reminiscent of the last. Is it the last? I mean, we get the wrap up, but basically the last episode with the old guy in the house who basically hates Halloween, and this is because it's like him not following the rules. And I'm gonna guess the director of and writer of Trick or Treat must have seen this episode because it's a lot of similarities. So anyway, this old guy, Mr. Killip, and his son's like taking care of him. He's like an old guy. He lives alone in his house. He got a neck brace, and he's all scraggly.
He's a real crotchety old guy too.
Yes, in a bathrobe, and that's another. He looks the way the guy looks at the end of the episode of Trick or Treat with the thing around his neck. It's like so close. It's thinking about it. It's just like, how can you not have seen this? Like, anyway, so he tells you, hey dad, you gotta give. We get a lot of plot exposition. Mm-hmm. His wife's dead. He's all alone. His son comes to see him maybe once a week, if So he's not neglecting his father, but his father's not a great guy, and you don't want to spend time around someone like that much. And I'm giving excuses for the character. Anyway, let's continue. So his son Michael is like, all right, I'm gonna give you some candy, and you're gonna give it out to the kids. You hate kids. You hate giving up. Well, they're getting free candy. Why are they getting free stuff? I get to work for a living. Forget that. So he leaves them alone. Says, okay, give out the candy, and they sort of have a little tender moment, like with all the complaining and not seeming to like each other. They have this sort of little moment before the son leaves, where he's fixes the guy's shirt a little bit and his robe, and kind of like bundles them up a little bit. He's like, bye dad. And like, oh, that's kind of, so there's a little bit of sensitivity there. So it's not just like, oh, he's just an asshole and that's it. But so we get this little kid comes to the door. He's like, I'm not answering the door. The bell rings again. He's like, okay, you want candy? I'll give you candy. So he gets the candy and he pours like dishwashing liquid and a bunch of crap and just all this slimy stuff. And he he answers the door. You want candy? I'll give you candy. And he pours the sludge into the kid's bag, and the kid's like, ugh, he looks up at him and is like, ugh, what the hell is this crap? There's a good line earlier on where the kid comes to the door. He doesn't give him candy. Another kid comes to the door, and he's like, weren't you already here? Now, the funny part is that kid is played, every kid who comes to the door is played by the same actor. So it's funny the second time where he goes, weren't you just here with a different mask? And it's like, yeah, actually, because it's the same kid from before. Anyway.
And they don't try to like make it seem like it's not the same.
One's like in it's sort of like the first episode of the first season, Trick or Treat, where one of them's a devil, and like there's a witch, so it's like sort of the same kind of, not that they're copying it, but I'm just saying that like it's Halloween. I mean, you're going to have the most recognizable, but I think one of the kids is a clown, and then the other kid is a devil, but it's a totally different costume. The kid wouldn't have.
Then there's a bunny rabbit. There's a bunny rabbit.
Right, there's a bunny rabbit. You see him at the beginning, the kid with the bunny rabbit costume. Like in the opening credits, you see that little kid. There's like a montage of a kid going to a different door and getting candy and stuff like that. But anyways, it's just funny that he goes, weren't you? Now it's definitely two different costumes, but it's definitely, they dressed up the actor. That they did the scene. He left. He redressed him and then came back. So it's not like he just switched masks, but it's just, I'm making a big deal about it. But it's just, I think it was funny that it's the same. This is the same character, the same actor playing two different kids or whatever. So anyway, so all right, so yeah, so he's just a jerk, and he's not going to be nice to these kids, and he's worried about his windows getting soaked and toilet paper in his trees. His son says earlier, you better give out candy because I ain't coming back in the morning and cleaning out your trees again like I did last year. It's not happening.
I like the what his son says at one time. He when he's telling his dad, you got to give them candy or they'll do these mean things to you. And and his son talks about when he was a kid. He says, remember, I forget what the old lady's name was, but he said, you remember her? He said, she didn't hand out candy one year, and he said, we sheared her poodle, and he said, I cut off the end of her garden hose myself. Yeah. And he says, she was meaner than you, Dad. And he said, well, she's dead now, so that makes me the meanest on the block. And he seems so proud of it.
But yeah, he also says earlier, he's talking about, Mom used to give kids the candy all the time, and she goes, she's dead. Like, wow. What a nice thing to say to your son.
I wonder how he treated his wife when she was alive. It makes you wonder.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you would think that he was nicer, and then part of him being annoying is like he's alone and his wife's dead, and like, yeah, but whatever. He's really not a nice guy. So it's like, yeah, like I said, there's that one little moment with him and his son, but other than that, so anyway, he gets another trick-or-treater. Well, it's not a kid. It's this creature, which he thinks is a kid at first, but I don't know, that costume's a little elaborate. I don't think a little 8-year-old kid is getting motors and stuff in a mask so it can move around.
Or would have the money to be able to get something like that.
So basically this little goblin starts tormenting the old guy, and it gets pretty bad, and that's sort of where I want to end with this one.
Yeah, something I wanted to bring up too, that like, does anybody remember in the 80s, like 84, 85, that had, phones in their house? I'm saying that because my family didn't have a phone for a lot of years in a landline phone. Now everybody has cell phones and stuff like that, but I'm talking about back in the landline phone days when that was basically what a lot of people had. They had a phone in their house. But when the old man keeps like I don't think this is giving anything away, but he keeps thinking that Halloween's got to be over. He even says that out loud. He says, I was asleep for hours. Halloween's got to be over. And so he picks up the phone and he dials, and it says, the time is now 12 a.m. or whatever. I mean, were people able to do that back then? Like, would they dial a number and could get, the time? Did people not have clocks in their house? I think it would be cheaper to have a clock than to have a telephone.
You could get the time and the weather.
Time and weather.
You used to be able to call and just get that. Yeah.
I guess because we didn't have a phone for so long, I guess I just didn't even think about it. The other thing I've noticed about these older television shows and older movies is when they dial a phone number, it's not these simple just numbers. It's a letter and number combination. Like it'll be K574 whatever.
Or F as in fellatio.
Exactly. Yeah. If you've watched Black Christmas recently. But yeah, so I never remembered that. I never remembered phone numbers being like that personally.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody Texas? Do you remember that? And I'm not picking on you, Texas, because you're a little bit older than me.
I only know that because I've seen it in movies. That's my story. I'm sticking to it.
Okay, so yeah, I will say though that as I said earlier, I really like this episode. This is one of the go-to episodes for me. Like if I'm not wanting to watch the whole season, if I'm just wanting to watch or the whole season, if I'm just wanting to watch the best episodes, like a best of thing, Halloween Candy would be one of those episodes that I would pick. And so we're going to get to like the twist here. I'm going to spoiler alert coming up. I'm going to turn it back over to TJ and let him talk a little bit about the twists in here.
So, there's this creature tormenting the old man. Yeah, there's sort of like a time is standing still type of situation where, it's why is it so dark? Because that feeds into the ending of the episode. So we found out the goblin, he just wants some candy, and the old guy is just refusing to give it to him. So it comes down to them having sort of a little tiff struggle, and he breaks the goblin breaks the old guy's neck, and it's all right, you're dead. A lot of death in these episodes. And it's like a kind of gruesome, like, it's like one of those neck snap type of situations,
Well, and like some of those scenes before it gets to this part, like I thought they were kind of creepy because the fluffy head character like flashes like on the screen momentarily and it's saying trick or treat. And then it also flashes on another scene, but I'm gonna let TJ talk about that.
Because there's if you have to watch the whole episode. Once you watch it, you'll see those flashes were basically showing you the ending. So there's sort of like little spoiler throughout, but I think they're supposed to make you like sort of set you off a little bit and keep you off kiltered when you're watching the episode to give you that feeling that there's some. But it's a big spoiler because you can go, see, I saw that coming because we see the dead corpse. So it's the next day. Remember this. It's the next day. And we find out that the son comes back and there's a bunch of cops there and paramedics and whatever. And they go, this guy has been here for several weeks. He's like, the guy like, you better find a good lawyer because you neglected your father. And he's like, he was kind of a jerk, but I forget what his exactly said. But he wasn't the greatest. He's like, he's like, he's like, I didn't like we didn't get along, he goes.
Mm-hmm.
But I never neglected him. Like before he leaves, he's like, there's some food in the refrigerator. There's not, but he's like, yeah, your father's tried to sustain himself on one bag of Halloween candy for several weeks. And it's like, he never says, I just left him last night, but we know, because we're not getting, they're not trying to give us, it's almost, the episode's over. They're not going to give us a ton of plot exposition, but basically they're like, he's all, the body's all like the deep eye sockets. And
yeah, it literally does look like he starved to death.
Yeah, it looks like he's been dead. Yeah, he's been dead for months.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sort of like, it's just shock of him being dead, but then you're like thinking back, like, okay, there's some kind of like time thing with the creature stops time, or has some controls time or something like that, or because once he's dead, you think that's it, but then when you get the little twist at the end where it's like, it's been weeks. Where you been? Why are you just like, I just left my father last night. I don't know what the hell happened. This makes no sense. I'm sure if they did an autopsy, they'll tell how long he's been dead, but
Right. So I felt like with this episode, even though this is a great episode, I felt like the son got the raw end of the deal. He got the short end of the stick on here, because basically, if he doesn't have a good lawyer, he's going to go away for a long time.
Yeah.
For basically killing his father with neglect. And I was like, I always wondered about this episode. Where did that come from? What dark recesses, I guess, did Savini or whoever helped write this episode, where were they reaching into to get that? Because I could understand the creature taking the old guy out, the father out, for him being just such a disagreeable person, and that was karma, kind of. But to do that to the son, as an like an extra stinger, I just didn't never really see why that was in there. That was the only thing that ever confused me about, unless they just had to try to find some kind of explanation for why the guy looked so bad, and work the son into it.
Yeah.
I don't know. That was the only thing I was ever confused about. What do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I think I said before about when writing a short story, it's like you have to throw a bunch of stuff in there, and you only have a limited amount of time. So sometimes you'll throw in something that just seems cool and interesting, and you're like, well, there's no real lead up to it, and you can't really explain it without going into detail. So you sort of have to kind of throw it in there, and hopefully it works. And then like afterwards, you're like wondering like, why did this happen? And like, well, you'll never know, because the writer is not going to be there. Yeah. But the guy who wrote Beetlejuice wrote this episode.
Oh, interesting.
He wrote Beetlejuice. He wrote this screenplay for Thinner. He wrote a bunch of other things.
It's been a while since I watched Thinner.
I saw a clip of it. Somebody, I don't know if it was on YouTube, but I was like, oh, I haven't seen this for a while. That's a pretty interesting movie. It's another. It gives me Drag Me to Hell vibes a little bit. I mean, it wasn't directed by Sam Raimi, but it sort of has the characters and stuff like that.
I could kind of see that. Something else I noticed when I was rewatching this Halloween Candy episode was, I believe the old guy is, when he's actually sitting in front of the TV, the music sounds suspiciously coming from the TV, like Night of the Living Dead. And so I think that was because basically anybody could show Night of the Living Dead, and I think they maybe still can, because I think that's considered a public domain thing, because somebody,
especially back then, it was all over.
Yeah, because it was showed on Halloween 2. The old guys watching it on Halloween 2, and you actually see scenes of it. Although I always found that interesting, because you hear the music that was not happening during the scene. This was like amped up music, like when Barbara was actually running from the zombie.
Yeah.
But you hear it and you hear Johnny say, "They're coming to get you, Barbara." And I always thought that that was weird the way they spliced that part together. Um, so let's see. Let me see what people been chatting about in here. Blissful says, I had a lavender phone in my room in the 80s. LOL. Yeah, I wasn't lucky enough to have my own phone ever until I got a cell phone. I mean, that was when I had my own phone. I had my own TV in my bedroom when I lived with my parents. I started out with a 13-inch black and white and then went up to color eventually. Then when I got a job, of course, I got me a big TV.
Mhm.
Blissful says, Dana, you could call for the time back then, especially when the electricity went out. We had digital clocks. Well, that makes sense. Clifton says, Blu-ray complete series with new special features, maybe someday.
No.
Yeah, it would be nice, but I'm kind of with TJ on this. I don't.
Yeah, like I said before a while back, it's like, and Michael Felcher said this too on one of the Dead Pit things. He's like, we'd have to go back and get the film stock and redo it and transfer it over, and it'd have to, somebody would have to go through all those not just unless they had. Well, it depends on what they had. Like if they had different takes, they'd have to make sure they got the right takes and stuff like that. But if they just had, because they don't you just can't get the episodes and clean them up. I mean, you could, but I don't think, like I said, it's going to take time and money more than it would cost.
Yeah, worthy endeavor at this point. And two, it would be kind of sad because if we got new special features, I would love to have George Romero on those. And unfortunately, and I'm not trying to be gruesome here, but unless you want to dig old George up and reanimate him somehow.
Yeah, no.
And I don't want to see reanimated George Romero. I'd rather see live George Romero.
On the DVDs, there's a couple of commentaries he does. He does one on the Trick or Treat episode and a couple of the other ones. I think the ones he had more involvement with. Because even though he was a producer, I don't think he really directed that many of them or was involved that much with them. Oh, by the way, I forgot about a part of the movie where the monster the goblin comes in and wants to grab a piece of candy, and the old guy's like, no, and he grabs his watch, and the watch falls and breaks.
Yeah,
I think that's where the whole time thing.
The time freezes.
The time freeze. So I think it's shown in there, so it's not that much of a. I just remembered that, and there's a creepy scenes with cockroaches that sort of remind me of creeping up on you from Creepshow.
I'm glad you brought that up because I meant to bring that up and then I totally forgot. But yeah, very reminiscent of their creeping up on you episode from Creepshow.
There's a bag of candy from the goblin that starts moving. There's a lot of creepy stuff in that episode.
Am I wrong, or does he have cockroaches in that neck brace that he's got on?
I don't remember.
I know they're like the glasses and they're kind of scurrying around different places. But
yeah, there's a couple of scenes with it. Like he sees one going off into it falls out of the bag or whatever, and they're like, it's very gross and creepy. Yeah.
Blissful says writing short stories makes me want to tear my hair out at times. I like writing short stories, and I go through periods where I want to read novels, and then I want to get a big old anthology, but with a bunch of short stories in it. I love Stephen King stuff. When he'll go novel after novel after novel, and then he'll have an anthology of a book of short stories, and so I just find that refreshing because you can read a whole bunch of those and feel satisfied by the stories, and you get you get satisfaction that you get an ending with each one of those. When you're dealing with a novel, even though I love novels, it takes you a while to get to the ending, unless you're like Billy Crystal's character in When Harry Met Sally, and you're afraid you're going to die or something. You always read the end first. But Texas says he had a phone in his room, but it was just an extension.
Ah.
Hey, Afro, you say, hello all. Sorry, late celebrating. Haha. I got a fantastic new job. Well, that's awesome, Afro.
Congrats.
I always like to hear that people got great jobs. Clifton says, so odds are against a Blu-ray. I would say much right now they're against.
Maybe not in this decade, maybe 20.
Or after
30.
we're all dead.
Yeah, 2030 maybe. I don't know.
The day after I die, they'll come out with
a fantastic
Blu-ray box set of Tales from the Darkside. Okay, so moving right along to the next episode, which is the Satanic Piano, which has Lisa Bonet on it. And take it away.
So it's about a musician who needs some new inspiration, and he sort of does the same old thing over and over again. Sort of, he's gotten into the rut, and they want to, his producer, what the hell the guy is, his agent or whatever is like, really close with him and his young daughter, played by Lisa Bonet, Justine. Anyway, so he's like, hey, I know this. So the manager's like, hey, I know this guy. You should meet him. He used to be a big type musician, or who hasn't been around for a while. He sort of disappeared. You should meet this guy. He's like, okay. So it's basically another deal with the devil. Yeah. That's pretty early in the episode. This guy's like, I have this piano, and it sort of reads your soul, and the piano will help you write. It'll sort of take from you your music and put it out there, because you're having trouble writing, and that's a good thing this is a good episode for writers too. It's like where you have something in, you want to put it down on the computer or on paper, and it's like you can't pull it out of yourself. Well, this piano, satanic piano, as it was, so that's basically it. But it takes a little more than just, it takes something from you, let's say. Yeah, I mean, I can't really say
too much more without.
Yeah, it's pretty the stuff with Lisa Bonet is cool. This is like during the she was on that show she was on. Anyway, let's not talk about that show anyway. She's from Angel Heart. She was in that movie Angel Heart.
Yeah, there you go.
Her first nude scene after a bunch of television as the.
She was on a different world. We can talk about.
I mean, it was produced by somebody, but
yeah, but we don't have to mention that.
And she only lasted a season, and then she left the show, so it didn't really matter.
Yeah.
And she married Lenny Kravitz famously. She was Lenny Kravitz's. They were barefoot hippies in the late 90s.
You know what else Lisa Bonet was in was High Fidelity, that movie with John Cusack.
Yep.
He actually has sex with her within the movie.
Yeah, when she did movies, she was like, she wanted to get rid of that, sitcom girl next door.
The squeaky image, because she actually says the word fuck in High Fidelity. Yeah. Don't tell nobody I said that, but she does say it.
That's like when Betty White was in Lake Placid, and all her dialogue. It's like everybody was like, "What? She's sweet little
Betty White."
Betty White, that's crazy. Yeah. So in get the creepy musician guy who's just something about him. He already looks creepy. Like if I don't think they really try to hide that there's something up with that guy.
No, the guy is obviously very sleazy, creepy. Yeah. Something's going on with him.
He was in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. He played one of the inmates. He was one of the inmates in that. He didn't get lucky enough to do a series as a little killer doll. He wasn't lucky enough to get into that, but yeah, okay. Anyway, yeah, that's all I got without the spoiler ending. But
okay, so yeah, I think I talked enough about Lisa Bonet. So the guy, her dad in it, the musician,
Michael Warren,
yeah, Michael Warren's character, he just seemed to be like a Lionel Richie type of musician to me. And he actually says to his agent or manager or whatever, he says, I want what McCartney gets. I want what Richie gets. He's wanting the kind of money that they were getting at the time, I guess. And so I don't know how I felt about this guy, really. He wasn't totally unlikable, but he was a little bit selfish during the majority of the episode. And I won't give it away, but he does kind of redeem himself by the end of it. But I just wanted to say, like, your daughter is living with you. I guess that he and his wife were divorced. The way they talk, they're divorced, and so he at one point he says, you sound just like your mother, and she gets really defensive. She says, I'm not her, okay? I'm not her. So you can tell that there's, even though the father and daughter love each other, there's a source of tension there between them, where they're not quite as close as they could be. And then he's so wrapped up in his work that he basically ignores her sometimes. His manager pays more attention to her than her own father does.
She's also wants to be a musician, and she's like, would you help me with my writing, with my music? And he's like, oh, I got my own things to do, kind of thing. And I think I'm guessing the mother left the way that conversation sort of went. That the mother walked out on the two of them, and I'm sure that's part of the. I mean, it's not in there specifically, but like there's some, blame, blame one. It's his fault that she left. No, it's your fault she left. I mean, no one really says that, but I mean, that could be part of it, especially when there's the sort of tension and like, you can tell he loves his daughter, but yeah, he's too worried about his career and his life, right?
See, the scene where he says she sounds like her mother is she tells him, Dad, there's nothing wrong with getting older. And that's when he says, you sound just like your mother.
Yeah, see, it's cryptic. I wouldn't even know what to think from that.
So I guess he doesn't want to, I guess it's sort of like he's going through a midlife crisis type of thing. Where,
probably.
And he doesn't like people telling him, hey, it's okay to get older. He doesn't want to. That's what I took from it, but that might not be what everybody takes from it.
I don't remember him in it, but he was in Dream Maniac.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, he did a lot of things too. He's been in a lot of TV and stuff too. A lot of sitcoms. Another person who didn't really like. They did more TV than. I mean, I guess some people are a TV actor who are like a working actor who, they're not famous, but they do a lot of stuff. Like, who's that? Margot Martindale, who that actors. Like you don't know her from anything, but she's been in enough things recently that as herself, and people like she was that. What was that show? BoJack Horseman, where his celebrity friend was Margot Martin. Anyway, yeah, I'm sorry. Anything else you want to say about it?
Not really. I mean, it's a pretty decent episode. I'll say it's not one of my favorites. If I was back to me talking about if I was going to just watch the highlights of this season, that would not be one that I would pull out of the pool of episodes.
Well, I remember when the show was syndicated, they showed all the episodes for the most part, but you would see it repeat episodes. Mm-hmm. So like I remember this a few times. So this was sort of a lot of it stuck in my head.
Right.
And the music sort of this like that the piano plays is sort of this like
electronic
synthy jazzy like like that kind of.
It's in your head and won't get out basically.
Yeah. And that's the thing too about his music is sort of like it's not interesting, it's sort of bland and it's just like poppy nonsense. So getting into the rest of the episode, we find out that the guy's basically not Satan, but he's sort of
I think he's made a deal with Satan or something.
He's like the devil's he's got like a job he's like Satan's job Satan's employee where he's looking for other souls. So that's basically what the piano is doing. It's looking for souls. And first we think it's the son. I mean the son, the father. But no, we find out his music isn't what it wants. It wants Justine. It wants the daughter. And it's
because she's pure. Her soul is pure and innocent.
Yeah, he sucks, and she's the one.
Right.
And he's like Winslow, and she's like Phoenix. So that's the situation.
Yeah. And
there's a point in the episode where she's like, "How does this work?" And it's like, it's sort of read your mind basically, and then
he goes to sleep with it on, and he wakes up and it's reading her mind basically and playing her song. And he's like, he thinks that she has done something physically to make it do this, and he jumps up and he says, "Justine, don't touch that. You might mess up some of my work." And she said, "I didn't. I just kind of walked up to it and it started." She's like, "Dad, that's my song. How is it playing my song?"
He doesn't really know he doesn't really know how it works. He's more like it's helping him, he thinks.
Mm-hmm. Giving him ideas and refining his music.
Yeah. So like I said, so the guy basically kidnaps the daughter, and the father goes to try to find her, and he obviously he's in his little studio with the piano, and it's basically gonna take her soul for whatever power or whatever he's gonna gain from it, or just to give it just takes souls in general. I don't know if it's how specific it is, but so there's this sort of this fight, and he's like, "I want my daughter," and there's a part where he punches this, because it's like this little screen that's sort of like a little lava lamp, and like changes color and design or whatever, and he kind of puts his fist through it and he pulls his hand out, and it looks like barbecue chicken. It looks it's very gross. It's very you can see his bone sticking out. It's kind of like this, except there's like sludge all over it.
It looks kind of like a black trash bag, a piece of a black trash bag on a hefty bag around there too.
Yeah, when you first see it, it looks kind of cool, but then when you really look at it, it's like it's a little cheesy. There's I remember there's a Fangoria article from the 80s, and it's Tales from the Darkside, and they show a lot of the special effects and stuff. Like, and they show like a good close up of the hand, and it looks pretty good actually. I think it's in the right light and stuff like that. I mean, it's not. It doesn't look terrible. It fits what it needs to do in this episode. And yeah, so he basically kills the guy. And yes, you're not gonna have any chicken tonight, are you?
We run blissful on the chicken.
Sorry. So yeah, so he kills the guy and protects his, saves his daughter. And he's like trying to wake her up. He's like, Justine, oh baby, and he's trying to hold her, because he basically has one hand and he's trying to hold her. And he's like, baby, it's like, I like the scene. It's sort of like, it's pretty good where she's sort of like, it's like a shot of the back of his head and her, and she's like sort of waking up. She's like, Dad.
Yes.
And I think that's kind of a cool. She's like a little like, oh, she's so out of it. It's like, oh yay, she's alive, yay. And he carries her out of there, and she's like, oh Dad, your hand. And she's like, it's okay. He's like, it's okay. You're the only thing that matters. You'll be the music now.
Yeah.
He's very dramatic at the end.
Yeah, exactly. Almost a little too dramatic, I think.
But I like it because it's sort of like, you could look at it. He's like, oh, she's gonna be the famous one, and she's gonna make the money. But I think it's more like his life was his music. Now he realizes that it's his daughter that really matters to him. So when he says, you're the music now, I take it more that he's like, I'm going to take care of you. You're going to be my daughter, and I love you, and everything else doesn't matter anymore. So I think that's kind of a nice, sweet, poignant ending. And then the last shot is the dead guy's hand through that little box.
Oh, yeah.
And it's sort of like shitty 3D reaching out at you, and it's like,
but it's still cool in a way, though.
Because he's got these leather plastic gloves on when he's doing his little ritual thing.
So
yeah, I like that episode. It's cute. It's cool.
I like it. It's just not one of my ultimate favorite ones. I did want to bring this up. John says it'd be a huge labor of love to convert these to film for a Blu-ray, but I'd love it. Maybe one day. I vote for Michael Felsher to do it.
He said twice that it's just too much trouble. They wouldn't do it anytime soon. So.
Maybe somebody will convince him on down the line.
I had asked in the chat at one time. I was like, "What?" And he answered the question. I was like, "Yeah, no, that sucks." Oh well, that's what they get from. They shot it on film. It must look pretty good if you get a really good copy of it. I think it was 35. It wasn't like 16 millimeters. So.
I mean, even the DVD. I'll see what you think, TJ. You can comment on it, but I think that Tales from the Darkside, the DVDs that I've got, look better than some other, like, I think it looks better than the Twilight Zone from the 80s that came out on DVD, personally.
Yeah.
So it had to have been pretty decent, film stock that they were using for that.
Yeah. Because most like soap operas and stuff were filmed on videotapes. So, I don't know how many other did the 80s. I don't know if the 80s Twilight Zone. What did they film in? Did they film in 35 or did they film with video equipment? I don't know. That's
not really sure. Because
the DVDs are a little washed out, but because you can tell because there's really you can't see grain, and you think because they were on film you would see some grain, but I think there's some of them like in the dark scenes, but then like a lot of it's, like I said, it's a little washed out.
So John says he's guessing that CBS has the masters of it. Not sure. I would assume they do. Let's see. Okay. So I think I'm pretty much caught up with the chat there. So this is moving on, is The Devil's Advocate.
Here we go.
So I'll let TJ talk about this. This one's, I will say that this is an interesting one. I'll say that.
So a lot of it takes place between Jerry Stiller plays Luther Mandrake, who is a radio talk show guy, a DJ, like a Howard Stern type of situation, and he's not a happy man.
No,
a lot of his phone calls are not about the way the world is terrible, and I'd say he's like a Howard Stern, but more like there are no like naked ladies, and there's no cool weird characters.
No, there's no chicks coming in and doing sexual things, and
so yeah, he gets random phone calls, and then he starts getting some very weird phone calls. He gets a phone call, and it's one of the act breaks where he's like talking to this woman, and he's like, I forget what they're talking about, and she seems a little off compared to the rest of his callers, and she's like, turn off your radio, and he's talking about her telephone, and I forget what it was, but she's like, we don't have those in whatever year she was. She's like from like the 30s or whatever, the 40s.
Yeah, I think doesn't he ask her? He's like, "Madam, what does your newspaper say? What is the date on that, or something like that?" He's just he's really nasty.
Yeah, he's a jerk. Yeah. Yeah, mostly it's I mean, you could probably explain more than this, but it's basically a lot of interactions with people, and it's weird interactions. I do want to say one of the phone callers is David Early from Dawn of the Dead. You know David Early.
Yeah.
Another telephone call is from a previous episode of Tales from the Darkside. She played what the hell is it? Word Processor with the Gods. She was the bitchy wife on Word Processor with the Gods. She's one of the voices, and she's got one of those very
distinctive voices. Yes.
Yeah, like sort of like she's like one of those people. One of those voices, like. But yeah, so yeah, I mean, you could the spoiler at the end. We won't talk, but you can talk about the rest of the.
Yeah. So again, Jerry Stiller plays a very. I don't know if he, if he ever was a nice guy, the character of Mandrake. If he was ever nice, or just so many bad things had happened to him that he got bitter and jaded and just treats everybody like shit now, that calls into his show. But he does talk about, people dying in his family that were close to him, and different things happening. So you kind of get the idea that maybe he was once an okay guy, and then he got bitter because, fate dealt him a bad hand of cards, pretty much. That's what I would like to think. I would like to think that this guy isn't an asshole. He wasn't an asshole his whole entire life. That something happened to make him like that. But this is another one of those episodes where I like it okay, but I would not put this on a highlight reel. It would not be if I was to put my favorite episodes, it would not be on there. It's just okay. So I don't want to give too much more away. Spoiler alert, I'm going to turn it back over to TJ to talk about the twist. Yeah, there's our spoiler alert notation.
I haven't done that. Only like I've done it periodically. So we get, one of the phone calls is a voice that's sort of like, I'm sorry about, like, that's what you were saying about, I think he was a better person, but he had a lot of tragedy, like you talked about, is because there's a voice that's like repeating stuff he had said earlier. I'm sorry about the hand you've been dealt, and I'm sorry about your wife, and wife dying and all that stuff. So yeah, I think sort of like Halloween Candy, where the guy probably had.
Isn't there a guy that calls in and like he says, I used to like your show, Mandrake, but you got sour. You turned sour.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that kind of makes you think that he was okay in the beginning, but not now.
I think that was David Early's character. But yeah. So basically, he gets a new job because he's basically he's still a radio DJ, but he's the radio DJ for hell. Yeah. And that phone call where the guy's like, I'm sorry about the terrible life you have, but I'm Satan. And he doesn't say that, but it's basically Satan telling him,
and he does.
But the voice basically, if not alludes, if not flat out says, it caused all this stuff to happen to him. Yeah. So he would become his servant in hell, basically getting people to people to come to hell, basically.
I think the voice does allude to that because he says, based on what happened to you, I couldn't have asked for a better advocate.
Yeah.
Of pushing people. You're helping push people towards me. You're helping push people towards the devil. And so I want you to do this forever and ever and ever. And so basically, his engineer or whatever has disappeared because I guess he slipped out of the earthly universe and went straight to hell. So this is what he's going to do. And his appearance has also radically changed. I'll let TJ talk a little bit about that too.
He's basically turning into a demon, so his face is starting to crack and get all pointy, and he's that's a cool thing about the episode. His horns slowly start coming out of his forehead throughout the episode. As the story gets revved up, the horns come out slowly, and then finally there's like near the end you see them poking out and coming out of his head, and I think that's kind of a cool.
Yeah.
And his character's like, if he wasn't in despair before, he's just like, he's stuck in, he's like coming to terms with his fate of being miserable and being this sort of beacon for other souls to come to Satan. Because the phone call with the old lady, it's showing that he's not just taking people from he's taking people from all through time.
Yeah.
Is what it's alluding to, that is he's making people convert to the devil, basically.
Mm-hmm.
The different opposite of Jehovah's Witness type of situation. No offense to Jehovah's Witnesses.
So Blissful says she remembers this episode, and Afro says, "Yep, Jerry Stiller and the devil. LOL, don't make the deal." And John brings up a good thing. Of course, John, I'm not so sure that TJ will want to do any more of these streams with me like this. But he says, if y'all need a show to transition into after this, I'd suggest Monsters, which I have the whole series of Monsters episodes. I don't know if TJ does or not.
No, I have certain episodes that I remember. There's the one with Adrienne Barbeau. There's the one with, speaking of Tales from the Darkside, had Lisa Bonet. Well, Monsters had Tempest Bledsoe from that show. She was in one from the Tempest show, where it lasted like a year. She had a talk show where it's the zombie one, which I think is a cool one. Those are like the two off the top. Like I'd have to rewatch the whole series. Like, I remember watching the show and liking it, and the opening I remember with the
That,
monster
yeah,
family.
classic.
Oh wow, candy critters and these like jelly monster things that they're eating. And
I mean, that alone is nostalgia to me because that's another show that I remember watching with my family. I don't remember as many episodes like from that far back in memory
yeah.
uh, as I do like Tales from the Darkside and Twilight Zone from the 80s and stuff like that. But I'm sure if I started rewatching them again,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of those would come back to me. The one that I remember very vividly was The Moving Finger, which is based on the Stephen King story. Basically, a guy comes into his bathroom one day and finds a finger, a single finger, in his sink drain. And you may think, well, there's nothing interesting about that, but just you gotta
Yeah.
watch the episode. Um, John also says, I need set up a TV that streams these horror anthology shows 24/7. I guess Pluto kind of does that. Yeah, Pluto does a lot of kind of binge watching type of deal for a lot of different shows.
Mm-hmm.
So moving right along before TJ falls asleep on me, which he might. We won't get through all the episodes.
Distant signals.
Distant signals. Now, I'm going to let TJ talk about it first, but I actually really like this episode. It's different to me than some of the others, but I'm going to let TJ talk about it a little bit.
Yeah. It has Harold Smith from Twin Peaks. If everybody remembers that Harold from Twin Peaks, the Laura's secret guy that was holding her diary and whatnot. The weird guy.
Yeah.
Um,
And who else is in it, TJ?
a lot of people in this movie. The Darren McGavin from
Darren McGavin. That's
from Christmas Story.
And from a movie that probably not a lot of people have seen, a low budget horror movie called Happy Hell Night. He's in that.
Yeah, I know.
Probably
he was in the better Night Stalker series, by the way.
Yes, he was in the Night Stalker series, which Steve pretty much introduced me to the Kojak, the Night Stalker, and I love it now as much as he does.
Yeah. Yeah. He's on Raw Deal. He was in Raw Deal. I forgot he was in that movie. No. This one I'm blanking on. Damn it. Why does this one not stick in my head?
Need to start talking about it first, TJ?
You start talking about it because I forget about this episode.
Okay.
It's totally out of my head. Okay.
So
well, I know who was in it, but I don't know anything.
The basic plot of the episode is this mysterious guy kind of shows up at this I believe he's a television producer's office, and he really wants this appointment with this television producer, but what he wants to talk to him about is some old show that nobody has thought of in years. But he's enamored of the show. He loves this show, and he wants them to bring it back. And this show had starred the character portrayed by Darren McGavin. I think, gosh, what was his name in here? Well, I might remember it later. But anyway, getting back to the story, he says, "Oh, you will have a big audience for this show if you bring it back." And they basically try to tell this guy, they're like, this show wasn't a success when it was originally on. What makes you think that if we bring it back and get all the same actors and stuff, that it's going to be any different? And he's like, trust me, there will be an audience for this show. So they find Darren McGavin's character, and I think he's a bartender or something now, and he's lost his confidence. He doesn't have any confidence in himself as an actor, and he's like, there's no way I can do this, but he agrees to come in and like do readings and he's the poor guy's fumbling over his words and stuff. He's kind of lost his flow and his rhythm and all that. And the mysterious guy gives him some kind of vitamin, only this guy pronounced it vitamins. You need to take these vitamins. And he's like, well, what is in these things? Because they make him feel instantly better. And I don't think they ever tell him what is in there. But they continue this show that nobody has seen in probably 20 or so years. And I think that Darren McGavin's character in that show dresses a lot like Kojak. And I thought that was a little bit of interesting, kind of like an aha moment. And so the show is basically a success, and this mysterious guy says he's gonna, take this show back to his investors, as he calls them. And so there's kind of speculation about, this one doesn't really have spoilers to it. So I feel like I can, there's not a zinger or anything really. But there is speculation about who this mysterious guy is. Is he an alien from another planet where they love old television shows and, they
Yes.
feed off that nostalgia? I would like to think that's the case, but it's never really explained. Once the episodes are completed, this guy pretty much takes them to wherever he came from, if it's another planet or what, and you don't see him anymore. But he seemed to make things good for everybody. Not only did he have something worthwhile that he could take back to his investors, but he helped Darren McGavin's character kind of get his groove back, so to speak, and get his confidence and stuff back. Yeah. So I'll let TJ talk about it a little bit here too.
Yeah, because this is like, I like the episode, but it's like not one of my favorites where I'm like, I know everything about it and the twists and stuff of that, and it's like, because it's like a film noir show. It's like a drama type of,
like one of those
detective. Yeah. And it actually reminds me this, if you know the show Futurama. And there's an episode where the aliens come down, and there was this broadcast that was interrupted by Fry, and the aliens never got to see the end of the episode.
Right.
And it was the show, which was a parody of that Close to Flockhart, the drama, the dramedy from the 90s with the what was that with they were all lawyers and everything. It had the hell was that show called?
Just drawing a blank.
With Portia de Rossi was in it. What the hell was that show?
You'll remember it about an hour after we do the stream.
No, I'm just gonna look it up.
You're gonna look it up, yeah. The wonder of the internet.
And they all sang in every episode. And Ally McBeal, that's the show.
See, I don't think I ever watched Ally McBeal.
I mean, I saw it when it was on. Like I was. There was a point in TV where I was just watching whatever was on.
Yeah.
now I'm like more selective. Like I'll go searching for a show, and but yeah, there's a point where it's just like, everything. I'm just gonna watch whatever's on TV, and so I watched a lot of crap. Anyway, not that show was crap, but whatever. It was on for like 5 seasons or whatever. So I mean, so anyway, yeah. So in the episode, they have to recreate the episode because the aliens never got to see it. So this episode kind of reminds me of it. Very little. I mean, they're not doing a bunch of episodes, but they're just recreating one episode. But it's sort of like aliens come down and they're gonna destroy the world. There's not that in this episode of Tales from the Darkside, but it's just. And I was like, they didn't have the theme song, so they made up a theme song, and the character Bender, the robot, it was like single female lawyer wearing sexy mini skirts and being self-reliant. It's a funny episode. Go watch that episode. I forget what the title of the episode is. And the aliens have names like Lur, but it's LRRRRR.
Gotcha.
But
I'll try to see if I can find that.
Yeah, this episode really doesn't. Like, I don't really know what to say about this episode. Darren Gavin's sort of drunk, and he doesn't really want to keep doing this, but
it's kind of washed out, isn't he?
Yeah, he sort of wants to do something, and this is sort of giving him a new life. Basically, he's sort of. So this is sort of more of an up. I'm going to just talk about that. It's more of an up episode where it's sort of like the Tear Collector, where this stranger comes into someone's life and he's changing their life for the better.
Right.
I sort of like that aspect, especially after Satanic Piano the last one with Jerry Stiller. It's sort of the downer and Paula, Floorfront's kind of this downer type of thing. So I like the sort of.
And Halloween Candy was definitely.
Yeah, Halloween. I mean, come on. But it's so like the guy who we don't know if he's an alien or not, but he's just this kind of quirky, and he's very like in your face, but he's very like smile and he's pleasant. So he's not forcing you to do anything, but like, yeah, I don't really have much to say about this.
Okay, that's okay. We'll move on to.
I should have rewatched the whole episode. That was my problem. But, yeah.
We're gonna talk about the first 4 episodes of Disc 2, or Disc 2 in my set, rather. So the first one is The Trouble with Mary Jane.
Love this one.
Yeah, I do too. And this has got Tanya Fenimore in it.
Everybody loves her in all her big movies that she's been in.
She was in Lisa, and I think she was on Punky Brewster. I think she played Punky Brewster's friend.
She was in My Stepmother Was an Alien.
Yes, she was.
She was in that. She did a bunch of TV. Like she was sprinkled out during the 80s, and yeah, I think mostly the 80s. I think she did a couple of things in maybe the early 90s, but I remember her. You know what the first thing I remember her from? She's in Twilight Zone the movie in the Kick the Can episode.
That's right. Yeah.
She plays one of the She plays one of the old people who becomes young. She does the young version of the.
Yes, she's
does. Like the Jewish wife. I think she was that. She was the Jewish wife of the Jewish guy. Yeah, she was a cute kid. I don't know how I don't know if she grew up hot or not, but
I don't know. I don't know what happened to her.
Yeah, but so yeah, so it's who else is in that? Phyllis. Anybody remember Phyllis Diller? Fang! Ha! She was in. Phyllis Diller was in it.
And Lawrence Tierney. We can't forget good old Lawrence Tierney is in this.
Yes, he plays Jack, Mr. Mills. Yeah, Reservoir Dogs, Born to Kill.
The Prowler.
Right, The Prowler.
You don't really hear him speak in The Prowler. You just see him.
No, yeah. He did some good movies. He did some movies. They were all good movies. Yeah, and no one else would really.
Oh, you know what else Lawrence Tierney was in? Silver Bullet. I almost forgot.
Oh, I forgot he was in that. Okay. And Mary Jane's aunt, who she's been around for a while. I can't think of. I'd have to look up specific things she was in. And go, okay, well, she was in an episode of Punky Brewster. I wonder if it was the same one as Tanya Finnemore. That would have been funny. She did random voices in Eek the Cat, and she appeared in like Mork and Mindy and Barney Miller. She did a couple episodes of those shows and stuff like that. And she was old. She was old in that episode. She's probably one of those people. She started working later in her life.
Or just looked old for a long time. It's like,
mm-hmm.
You know, Leslie Nielsen had that gray hair for, it seemed forever.
Yeah. So it's about this couple, and they're tarot card readers. They're sort of, they don't really do anything spectacularly fake. They're basically card readers. It's not like in the cards where she's just like, they do stuff at like women bazaar meetings, and not bazaars and crazy, but like, women socials, and they'll do some tea leaves on the side.
Yeah,
and, they're basically that. So we have a situation where they actually finally come to a real supernatural event. Miss Nugent, her little granddaughter, Mary Jane. Mary Jane is possessed by the devil. And she's basically
possessed by the devil or just a demon.
Well, it's a demon, but it's always the devil. She's possessed by a demon. Aisha Kandisha.
Aisha Kandisha.
Aisha Kandisha has goat feet. There's a scene where she's like, she's introducing herself to the couple who have been brought in to try to exorcise this demon out of the little possessed Mary Jane, who's sort of just like kind of white skinned, and she's very pale. She's not like Reagan where she's cut up and stuff like that. But
no, they're not trying to be too graphic with it. I think the most we get is like spit, like drool coming out.
There's a lot of like Alka-Seltzer type of.
Yeah, and you can tell
coming out of her mouth for a lot. Yeah.
You can tell in those close-up shots that they, stuck something in her mouth right before that scene. She just
we get introduced to her, and she's doing her dialogue, and she's doing a good job of faking it, but you can tell she has something in her mouth. But she's doing this talking, and then all of a sudden she starts like really emoting, and then it starts dripping down her face, and it's like this. So it's a comedy. This is funny all the way through, so don't expect anything scary.
No, it's not scary.
So yeah, there's a scene where she's introducing herself to this couple, and she's like, "I'm Aisha Kandisha. I am she who devours man. I am Aisha Kandisha. See, I have goat's feet." And she lifts up her little her blanket off the bed, and you see these little feet doing this, and it's a cute little effect.
I eat men's souls, doesn't she say?
Yes, she devours men's souls. That's her thing. Yeah. And they're not used to this type of situation, so they gotta sort of build up to it. And Nora, his wife, is like, "We can't do this. This is real stuff here." She's like, "That child is." She's like, "You need an exorcist. That child is demon possessed." And she's like, and the aunt is grandmother. I think she's the aunt. She's like, "Yes, I know." And she's very like, "I don't know what to do." She's like very like, "I don't." She's like, "Oh."
She tries to like give her soup and stuff, and like you see the spoons flying, and
she's spitting soup up.
She looks at her like she's just being a naughty child, not like she's demon possessed.
She's like, Mary Jane. She's a very proper. She's like, Mary Jane, you can't do that. How, you know? And yeah, when she lifts up and shows her the feet. She goes, those are definitely not Mary Jane's feet. It's like, yeah, no kidding. And she's like, she's like, can you help her? Please help my daughter. Like, he's like, we'll try. And then the wife's like, no, we can't. So they go back to their little reading, their little place on the corner. And the wife's like,
the tea room. Is that what they call it?
It's like a tea room. Yeah, the tea room or some of that. And she's like, I want to open up a beauty parlor like Gladys down the street. She has a nice little business and a nice little. She's like, I want a nice business and a nice little savings. I don't want this, you know. But he wants to be the big, you know, big guy who fights all these creatures and stuff like that.
And he wants to get the $50,000 too.
Well, yeah, it's $50,000. I mean, like, there's a point in the story where he's like, even you would want to save this girl's soul for $50,000, even if you don't want to save her soul. You want the money, right? And she's like, I'd rather, you know, there's a point where they fight, they try to exorcise the demon, and her arm is broken, it's in a sling. So they decide, hey, we need a more powerful demon to get rid of this other demon who might not be as powerful, because she's a woman demon, and you know she can't be as powerful as a man demon. Anyway, so they decide we're going to get this other demon called Gad, who is the ruler of all the other demons. He's sort of like, if you watch Buffy, there's that guy with the horns who's sort of like, he like controls all like the demons with the like Anya, if anybody knows, they're like the demons of like wish demons. They make wishes to people who need, like, there's the wish demon who helps little kids. There's the wish demon Anya who helps women who are scorned. So this is sort of like,
and it sort of reminds me of Bacchus from Xena Warrior Princess.
Okay. Yeah.
Remember Bacchus?
Yeah.
I guess he was a demon. That's what he seemed to be.
Or they're all gods and stuff on that show. So it's like some kind of like the ruler of the lower ranking of whatever. So anyway, they get Gad in to basically take over and get rid of Aisha. Are you? I don't know. You sleeping? Thank you. Thank you very much.
Were your ears burning, Wes? Because I was talking about you earlier, like when we started this stream.
So she they get Gad, and whoops, Aisha didn't want to leave. Now we have two demons in the little girl. So she's doing double. This girl is pretty good. I mean, she's lip syncing, but she's really like emphasizing, and she's going along. It sounds like she works with the voices, really sound like they're coming from her as far as her acting goes. I think she did a really good job. I mean, I don't know. You should have won an award for this. I don't know why I didn't. The kid who, we haven't got to that episode. Never mind. But she does pretty good. I don't know why little Tanya didn't get bigger roles after this. She should have got a big movie. She should have been like Sally Field. This probably wasn't like Sybil, but I mean, you know.
Not Sybil level, but
yeah,
it was good for a girl her age, I think.
So Mr. Mills decides, okay, I have to get myself into physical and spiritual shape to fight both these demons to save this little girl. And his wife is like, no, you can't. I won't be part of this.
Right.
And he goes, well, fine. I'll just put up an ad in the paper, and we'll find somebody else to replace you, and you don't have to worry about it. So he's like, I'd like to place an ad. And she takes the phone from him, and she goes, Jack, don't do that. Cancel this ad. And she goes, cancel that ad. And she hangs up the phone.
That's right.
So they go in, and he's all pumped up and ready, and she's there to assist, and the aunt is there, and they're gonna set up the room to have the final battle with two demons. And Yeah, I think we've been talking about this episode. So I mean, is there anything else you want to say about
I really, really like it, and I'm like you. I think Tanya Fenimore does an awesome job as the little girl possessed by two demons at one point. Um, so I mean, this might be a little bit of a spoiler. So, spoiler alert, guys. TJ's going to show you the VHS there as the alert. But I'll tell you, one of my favorite parts is when they're trying to fight both of the demons,
Yeah,
both Aisha and Gad, and they're trying to get them out of the little girl. What happens is they end up going into Mr. and Mrs. Mills. So
that's a big spoiler for the.
yeah, but what is even more funny than that is Gad goes into Phyllis Diller's character,
Yes.
and Aisha goes into Lawrence Tierney's character. And so Phyllis Diller's hair's like she stuck her finger in a light socket or
Yeah,
something.
yeah, yeah. That was
And,
probably one of her real wigs, I bet, in real life.
and so they basically just go grumbling. They just like once the demons have left the girl, it's like Tanya Fenimore's character is of Mary Jane is
She's back to
like
normal.
she says, Grammy, she says, who were those people? Oh, they were Mary Jane, they were the nice people that got you well. You were so sick. She doesn't say how
You
you
were
were.
very sick, Mr. and Mrs. Mills. They made you better.
TJ does it better than me. But yeah, so this was not a scary episode. When we say demon possessed, we're not talking about the exorcist here. We're not
There's
talking
like
about
a goat sacrifice, but it doesn't really get graphic with that.
right. Um, so they have a pig in there. Well, I think the pig runs
Pig, right.
off, though, doesn't it? Doesn't it just like run off out of
Yeah,
frame?
it didn't work. Yeah, the sacrifice.
So yeah, that's basically all I want to say about it. Other than I really like it. I think me and TJ are on the same page with.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a shame because Phyllis Diller's really funny, but they didn't really give her a lot of funny things to do. She's sort of the nagging wife character, and she's got a couple of scenes, but
Yeah,
he's not overly funny. And it's like, why wouldn't you give the comedian the jokes?
yeah.
Because Lawrence Tierney is the
Why
straight
would
guy.
you have
It's like we
Phyllis
have two
Diller
straight
in that
guys. It's weird.
episode? Yeah.
But Tanya does all the comedy.
They,
Even at the end when they're possessed, they're not really doing, because she's like, when she's Aisha, she's like trying to be the sexy demon, and then when she's Gad, she's very like, "Urgh." But they're like, they don't seem to do it as well. I don't know. Yeah, so yeah, that's the thing where that's kind of cool because there's the fight between the two demons, and they're also the fight with the couple trying to exorcise the demon. So things are going flying. The grandmother grabs the candle holder that's on the wall, and she starts levitating, and like the wind is pulling her. It's like a poltergeist thing, where it's so funny.
yeah,
You see her legs dangling, and it's hilarious.
very humorous episode. We're not kidding about this. It is very, very humorous.
Yeah, and they're like, they do their introductions. I am Aisha Kandisha, and I devour men's souls, and I am Gad, the ruler of every, whatever. And then you see that it's the demon, the man demon went into the woman, and the woman demon went into the man, and she's like, the woman's like, this wasn't the body. I wanted the woman's body, and he's like, you're never satisfied. She's like, I don't like this body, and he goes, it was better than the one you had.
Yeah. So Wes is saying, he said positively, I hope, when I said that I was talking about him earlier. Well, actually, Wes, I'll tell you what I was saying. I was saying that I ran across your video you did where you did the intro for Tales from the Darkside with your hair hanging in front of your face. And I saw that before I even knew who you were, who Dead Pit was. And I thought it was interesting and creepy the way you did it. So you could have been a double for the original narrator. Like if if you had been old enough for them to ask you to do that, if something happened to the original guy, I think he would have did a good job. And
give those old Dead Pit videos a watch. Get those numbers up.
Yeah, we're promoting you. Wes also says, I've been watching Bad News Bears go to Japan tonight. Friggin' awful and embarrassing.
That's terrible.
Yeah, don't watch that one. Watch Breaking Training. That is a lot better.
The wrestling scene isn't even good. It's so
bad. And Wes says, don't spoil me on a 38-year-old show. Yeah, I know it's old, but there's still probably people out there that
there are internet trolls, like, who get mad when you spoil. I don't know that Norman Bates was the killer. Seriously, you're 1960. You 12-year-old who just watched your first movie. You're upset that's a movie spoiled for you. Okay.
So, moving right along to the next episode of the 4 that we're going to talk about tonight, Ursa Minor, where a teddy bear, believe it or not, is the central focal point of this episode.
Now, this is, like I mentioned Talkie Tina earlier, this is very reminiscent of that episode of The Twilight Zone.
But not as good, I don't think.
No, it's I mean, whatever. It's about it's this couple, Joan and Richard. He's sort of like a lazy layabout. Like, he doesn't have a job. He doesn't do anything around the house, and he sort of has a loving wife for some reason. I don't know why she's a loving wife, but and they have a little girl, Susie, and they're taking care of the kid. She gets this teddy bear, and she starts talking to the teddy bear, and the teddy bear starts telling her things and telling her to do things, and then the teddy bear starts acting on his own, and she goes to this sort of let's say Vincent D'Onofrio from what the hell is that movie? Not Insidious, the other one.
Conjuring?
No. The one with the movies and the
Sinister.
Sinister, that's it. It's sort of like a Sinister thing.
Oh, okay.
Where it goes, you go to the guy that's not a new thing, but you go to the guy who's learned of things and knows about stuff, and he says, there's he talks about Ursa Major and Ursa Minor, and he talks about not just the stars, but they're sort of like these creatures that exist in the world. And the good for nothing husband father sort of leaves. He goes to he gets something happens, and he goes to what happens? He goes to the hospital, right? Yeah, he goes to the hospital, right? Yeah.
And there's what the no count husband also, like, he plays on he really irritates the wife, because when things start to go awry, he looks at her and he says, Teddy did it. And that just makes her even more upset, because that's what the daughter keeps saying. I didn't do it. Teddy did it.
I didn't do it, Mommy. Teddy did it. It's like she says, Teddy did it. I'm like, okay.
That's a creepy kid, too.
Yeah. So it's a little Child's Play-esque. A few years before Child's Play came out. So yeah, she goes to this doctor, and she's basically giving a warning, and then it's her, and she tries to get rid of the teddy bear, and the teddy bear shows up again. Like, it's very Talkie Tina. I'll stop there because there's spoilers for the rest of the episode, but
okay, so I will say this is also not one of my favorite episodes. I think this is a pretty weak episode compared to some of the others we've talked about. And again, if I was, wanting to watch all my favorites or have a highlight reel of them, this would not be on it. I think that the little girl is a little annoying. I mean, I know child actors, they can be annoying, but there's some good that are like Tanya Fenimore that we talked about in The Trouble with Mary Jane. She was not annoying, but this little girl got on my nerves after a while, because first she didn't want them to take the teddy bear away, and then she was kind of scared of the teddy bear, and it's like, just be quiet, kid. Go somewhere and just uh, don't bother us anymore. And then to top it off, you have the husband who acts like a child.
Yeah, he's totally worthless.
Yeah, he is. That's what I was going to say. He's a very useless. He's a throwaway character.
It's like she has 2 children instead of a husband and a child.
Exactly.
And he's always drunk. And I think this sort of, I read somewhere on the internets that this was sort of a sort of like another alcoholism, sort of like child of, like he was an abusive. I don't think it's really abusive. Like it was sort of hinted at, but I think there's sort of underlying tones of spousal abuse and stuff like that. And this sort of like, well, there's another episode that's coming up.
I think they hinted at that quite a bit, that there had been some kind of previous violence or abuse towards the wife and maybe the little girl as well.
Yeah. Because you can tell they're not, like, she's not happy with him, and he's just a miserable layabout. And she's in speaking of monsters, she's in a interesting monsters episode. We're not talking about monsters, but that was a pretty good episode with this. She's on a kids show, and there's this puppet, and she sort of works the puppet from behind stage. She's sort of like, it's hooked up to her, and she's like, she can make it move and talk and whatever. That's a really creepy episode, but we're not talking about that show. But yeah. So we're gonna start spoiling it. Might as well just get to it.
Yeah, because spoil away.
I just can't figure out the camera is on my phone. There we go. Okay. So Daddy's gone. Not crying about that one because it really didn't do anything didn't really help out. He just sort of antagonized things. So Teddy was alive. See, they get rid of the Teddy. They think they get rid of Teddy, and they give little Susie a new doll, and they call the doll Goldilocks. Isn't that cute? Well, later on, we find out Teddy has come back, and we see mangled little Goldilocks on the floor, and the mother starts stabbing the little Teddy because Teddy attacks. Teddy's got little red eyes, and Teddy kind of moves a little bit, and she starts stabbing Teddy, and she finds Goldilocks' hair in Teddy's stomach. So Teddy is moving around and eating things. But that's not the biggest twist. The biggest twist is Teddy has a big brother. Teddy was Ursa Minor. Ursa Major is a big scary creature. Now we hear it roaring outside, and it shakes the house, and the mother's trying to protect the kid, and they fall to the ground, and the house is sort of falling apart around them, and this giant bear claw comes through. Anybody seen Prophecy with remember the camp scene? This is sort of remind me of that. So this big giant claw comes in and runs its claws against the wall. You see these big giant fingernails and big scrapes coming across the wall, and it ends with the mother and child sort of in the corner cowering, and the credits go over their faces while the mother's screaming, and then it ends. And it's like, that's it. That's the big twist. So I think the twist is sort of, it's interesting, but it sort of just ends. It's a letdown.
Yeah. It's
episode, I think.
Like they didn't know where to go with it or not really know how to end it. So let's just do this.
They do a later episode with big arms that works a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
But this one it's a really memorable one. Like I remember a lot of it. without having to actually watch it. But it's just like, yeah, once you think about it, it's like, it's not. It starts off okay. The characters, the mother's pretty good, but you need more characters of interest, I think, in this story to make it work better.
We basically had 3 characters.
Yeah, we got the doctor guy who comes in for a minute, and
yeah. But other than that, you have the wife who's okay.
Yes.
You have the husband who totally disposable character. Does nothing to move the plot along. He just kind of, like TJ said, antagonizes everybody and everything in the episode. And the little girl is just, I find her annoying. To me, she was disposable too. And I don't mean that in a like let's kill her off way. I just mean
Yeah.
she didn't add anything to the episode.
Yeah.
At all.
Actually, I was thinking the doctor is more like in Suspiria, the German guy who Udo Kier says, "Hey, come over and talk to Susie Bannion and tell her about witches and stuff like that." He sort of has the same sort of speech to her about Ursa Minor and Ursa Major, and Ursa Major's, Ursa Minor, he's a little devil, but Ursa Major, he's the big gargantuan thing that comes in.
That's the one you got to worry about.
Yeah, but all we get is a big giant claw. But anyway.
So we'll move along to Effect and Cause.
This is a good one. I like this one.
Yeah, I like this one too.
The actors are pretty good. It stars Susan Strasberg, who is the daughter of the famous teacher, the Strasberg School of Acting. He's her father.
You know what horror movie she was in? Like an early horror movie she was in.
Without looking it up, I'm trying to think, and I gave up right now. What was she was in Sweet 16.
She was in that one, but she was in another
one. Manitou, she was in that one. I remember
Bloody Birthday.
Manitou?
Yeah, I did. I think I watched that with Steve, but it's been a while. Bloody Birthday was the one I was.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, she's the kind of cranky teacher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the one who she lives for the whole movie. Anyway, yeah, I like this episode. So it's about Kate, who's she's an artist, and she has a friend who's he's a dancer, right? I think he's a dancer.
I think so, yeah.
And she has her sister Janet, and yeah, she's just like a kooky, like hippie artist type of person.
Yeah, like an ex-hippie type.
Yeah, she's like one of those crystal type of,
and goes around saying, hey man, about everything and stuff.
So your friend David, he's a teacher. I guess the twist comes later. We can talk about this. So she basically finds out that she could sort of make things around her, change things around her, like first she just thinks she like lost her keys because she goes to find them, and then they're not where they are, and then she finds them in another spot, and stuff like that happens. Like it's creepy though, the way I'm explaining it terribly, but these little things
this is hard to explain. This episode is
she can basically change things around, and like you just think she's absent. Well, her sister too, especially, just thinks she's like absent-minded, and
and all those drugs she took back in the 60s.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean what leads up to the end, the big twist at the end is kind of like, I don't know. You can take it from there, and I'll try to chime in.
So things get more and more bizarre. At first, it's just kind of funny, the things that happen, like TJ said, she thinks the keys have gotten misplaced, or she can't uh, find certain things, like the grocery. This is back in the days when the grocery stores had delivery guys that would bring. This was before we have things like Instacart and stuff like that in cities now. But anyway, a delivery boy from the grocery store would bring your groceries. And so the delivery boy shows up at the door of her apartment, and she says, "But I didn't order anything." And he says, "Well, the list sounds like one of your orders." And as he's reading the things off from her list, she's got her cabinets open and things just start disappearing out of the cabinets. Um, and there's a scene where um, an ambulance shows up outside her apartment, and like her friend says, "An ambulance just pulled up out front. Do you have any older neighbors that might have had a heart attack or something?" And then he says, "Well, wait a minute, they're coming up to your apartment." And right about that time, she falls down the stairs. And so it's things are happening in reverse, hence the effect and cause title, I guess would be the best way to explain it. So the effect is happening before the cause. So it's a very strange set of circumstances, but it starts out kind of funny and just keeps getting darker and darker as it goes on. So yeah, I'm going to turn it back over to TJ a little bit about the spoilers.
Yeah, I mean that was sort of the biggest. That was like the first reveal, is that things are working backwards, where things are happening after the fact, but then the thing that actually would cause that to happen second. Cause and effect and cause. Duh. You just explained that. And by the way, her friend was in Jaws 2. He was one of the random guy, one of the boat friends.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna have to go back and watch Jaws 2 and look for him.
There's the one with the two girls, with a girl gets eaten by the shark, and the Sean's left alone, and then they get the two guys that sort of hang out with Sean. One of them, not the curly head guy, but the other guy was Ben Marley, who played David.
Okay.
He's been in a lot of things. He's been on Apollo 13, and he was also on Bloody Birthday, by the way.
Was he? I'm wondering if he was at the beginning of it.
He's one of the dudes. I forget. Like he was somebody's boyfriend or something. I can't remember.
Oh, he could have been. He could have been. Oh, what's her face? Shoot, I'm forgetting. But I'll have to go back and try to pick him up.
But yeah. So things are starting to, like, she sort of thinks she has control of things, but then they start getting out of hand, and it comes to a crescendo where basically her house is falling apart because all these things are just happening all at once, and she's just losing control. And she just things that randomly happening, and then we set up earlier that there's something wrong with her. She has a little issue with her stove. Well, later on, in
the doorbell,
her doorbell is sort of sparking and ringing and whatever. And we find earlier on that's sort of foreshadowing we get at the beginning of early in the episode, is where the guy turns on the stove, and the pilot, the light, it's the gas is coming, but the spark isn't working. And later on, when things start going crazy in the house, everything starts kind of twitching and working and whatever, and she sees the door buzzer's little thing on the wall starts barking, and she looks at the stove, and she's like, oh god, she remembers what's wrong, and she's like, oh no, and then she can, the stove is like, we can see that the stove is sort of it's on.
Yeah.
And then we flash to her, and then we flash to the doorbell, and then
just
she explodes.
explosion.
Yeah. So yeah.
And that's the end of Susan Strasberg in that episode, basically.
At least it's just her. Like no one else dies in the episode. I mean,
no, but it goes from being kind of humorous to dark really quickly, I think.
I think she was very good in her role, going from crazy hippie painter to like woman sort of. It sort of reminds me of, not exactly like, but sort of like Diane in Poltergeist, where she's sort of she's a regular person, and then she's like, these weird things start happening. She gets excited about it, and then things start getting sort of going downhill and getting sort of devious, and then she's sort of immersed in what's going on. So I like
when you were saying that, I was imagining Jo Beth Williams when Craig T. Nelson comes home, she's like, I got to show you something.
Yeah.
And puts the little girl on that circle, and she just slides, and she's like, whoa, like that, and she jumps up in the air and stuff. So that's what I was envisioning whenever.
Yeah, that's like when the friend comes over, she's like, I can show you something, and she shows them that she can do things and stuff like that. Yeah, so yeah, I like this episode. This I don't know if they could expand this one and make it into like a movie. I'd be interested in seeing, but
yeah, you could probably do a lot with that on a larger scale. Yeah, I really like it as well. But to move things along, I'm not going to talk any more about it. I think I talked about it enough a little bit earlier. So we can get to the final episode that we're going to talk about tonight. So TJ can get some sleepy time, and I can too. So this is Monsters in My Room.
There's monsters in my room!
And TJ, do you know who the kid is in here?
There's an itty bitty, teeny tiny, microscopic Seth Green in this movie.
Seth Green is in this. Yes, very young Seth Green.
Before he was the fat kid on the cartoons and before he was on Buffy, and before he was
before he was in It.
Before everything.
But before he was in It, playing the younger version of Richie Tozer.
Was this his first thing? It might have been his first. The 100,000 credits. It might have been his first. No, he was in a bunch of crap before he was in this.
He was in a Wonder Years episode too, one of the latest.
Yeah, he did like a couple of. Yeah, I think this was like. He did a couple of after school specials and one movie. Yeah, and then he went on to he had a pretty good career, I'd say, except for Ticks, but
Right.
That's not the greatest. Yeah, so it's about this kid, and he's got a really nice wife. His mother's very doting, and she's sweet, but she's like, she babies him a little too much. And her second husband, who's sort of a dick, another dick guy. Yeah, he doesn't.
Yeah, I don't like that. Yeah.
There's really nothing like he's not as bad as the wife from Paula Forefront, but he's not the nicest guy. Like, he's trying to get this kid to. He's trying to like be the father.
But he's just so like. There's a scene where he's chasing after the kid, like he's really gonna grab a hold of him and do something bad to him. And I just don't trust the guy throughout the entire episode.
And he's like, "Oh, let's watch some sports," or "Oh, you shouldn't be playing with toys and dolls." And
Yeah, he's mortified when the mother gives him the cuddle stuffed panda for Christmas.
Yeah, that's the only thing he wanted, a little tiny stuffy pandy thing. Okay, yeah. I mean, whatever. But I'm not going to get into child welfare. But yeah, he's a jerk. And well, it gets funner when we start realizing. So the kid starts hearing weird noises and seeing things in his room, but we find it's not. There's monsters in his room. It's in the title. We're not gonna. That's not much of a spoiler. But he has there's a lot of creepy monsters in there. There's you only see its shadow and its eyes, but there's an octopus under the bed. There's a buzzsaw that goes through the room and leaves. There's
some kind of boogeyman type thing that looks like some kind of voodoo something or other that comes out.
There's like a boogeyman, ogre guy in the closet. And there's a witch running around outside the room. There's not actually in the room. I don't know how that. Maybe she goes in and out of the room. I don't know. And it's just these weird noises, and his little stuffed animals start moving, and there's a part where they start like singing to, because the mother, when the kid's scared, the mother comes in to sing him with this lullaby, and then later on, the monsters are sort of taunting the kid with the lullaby, so it's like a reverse effect where instead of soothing him, it's now scaring him. Meanwhile, the stepfather's
don't they at one point, because the stepdad or whatever called him a yellow belly sailor, he talked about yellow belly sailors. The toys are doing that. I'm like, yellow belly sailor. They keep saying that all the time.
And that like whispering, scary yellow belly sailor.
Exactly.
Yeah. He's getting picked on by his stepfather. He's also getting picked on by the monsters. And something happens. He does something next.
Spoiler.
Because we can just, unless you have other stuff to talk about, we can get into that too. But I mean, you can.
Yeah, I think we brought up Seth Green being in it, and we brought up the fact that the stepfather's a dick. I think everybody's got that in there, and yeah, the mother spoils him too much, kind of coddles him a little too much.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, we can move on to the spoilers, TJ.
Okay, so we already know that the monsters are real, and so the kid, after all that abuse, he finally stands up for himself, and he starts fighting back with the monsters. He gets some cringy lines, like he's like, "Buzz off, saw." I'm like, oh.
Yeah, exactly.
That was terrible.
That was kind of lame.
Someone should show that scene next time, like he's at a talking about I've done these projects and these great movies. Remember this line? Do you remember this, Seth Green? In fact, if I ever meet him, I want to have him to sign a picture and go and write down "Buzz off, saw." I wonder if he'll remember it's from that episode.
I don't know. That would be funny.
And of course, he's young Timmy. Figures. Timmy, he's an average kid that no one understands. Anyway.
Yeah, he has. One thing I didn't bring up was the creepy potato bug that he has in the jar, and his.
Oh yeah, that's right.
His stepfather scares him and causes him to drop the jar.
Yeah, and it kills this poor little pet that he loves so much. Yeah. The mother's, "I'm sorry," and the mother's trying. She's like, your stepfather's not really trying to, be a jerk, but you should try to be nicer, or whatever. And it's like, okay, sure, whatever.
Yeah, and the potato bug was Ernie, I think. I think that's what.
Okay, yeah. Poor, and I'm like, I thought it was like a termite or something like that, but I guess potato bug. I guess is that a thing? I don't know. I guess it must be. Right?
I guess maybe that's not the technical term for them, but they were like, nobody will ever know. We'll just call it the creepy potato bug.
They were just trying to think of nerdy things for this kid to do that aren't football, and I don't know what else at that age. Like, it would have been funny if the stepfather brought in like a centerfold calendar photo or something like that. Like, put this on the wall and be a real man, kid.
Yeah, be real.
But yeah, I don't think that would have worked. But anyway,
I guess he played t-ball or something. My brother played t-ball way back when. So
yeah, there you go. so he's like, he starts sticking up for himself, and then his stepfather's yelling, "Shut up in there!" because he's screaming at all the monsters and like telling off the monster in the closet, "Hey, you!" He's like, "Boo!" and like scaring the monster, and the monster's like, "Ah, okay."
That's funny.
So they're losing their power basically. So he's like, "I gotta go to the bathroom." He sneaks out into the bathroom, and he opens the door, and the witch pops out and scares him. I don't think the witch was I wish they got the same witch from the Trick or Treat episode.
Oh, that would have been great.
Because she was really spooky. This one's sort of goofy. The chin sort of like, I think it's not supposed to be as scary because it's a little kid, but I don't know. I just didn't think it was. The makeup was fine, but it was just like it was like Spirit Halloween, like the chin and the nose. It's just like stereotypical, green witch or whatever.
So then he starts at that point in time when his stepfather really gets after him, and he's always talking about how Timmy's weak and stuff, and all of a sudden he yells at me. He says, "You're the weak one. You're weak in the head," and that just really makes the stepfather go crazy.
Yeah, so the kid starts, telling off everybody. So it's like, okay.
He got some balls all of a sudden. It's just going crazy and telling people off.
So as the stepfather is trying to discipline the poor kid, the witch decides to show up in the bedroom. The witch attacks. So basically, the stepfather gets attacked by the monsters, and he gets killed. And that's the big, the twist is the kid sticking up for himself and the stepfather getting killed. So at the end, where there's like a wake at the at the house, and everybody's all sad, and the kid's basically like, well, he deserved it because he was a jerk.
Yeah.
And the mother's like, how dare you say that, and go to your room. And the kid goes to his room, and there's a note on the door, and it says, "There are monsters in my room." And
yeah, exactly.
And it ends. Yeah.
So I like this episode. Did you like it pretty well, TJ?
Yeah, it was cute. It was like, it wasn't scary. It wasn't as comedic as a lot of the other ones. Like, it definitely wasn't The Trouble with Mary Jane comedic, but I think it was light. I mean, I think they were trying to do a little of the jump scare stuff with the witch, because they sort of bring her in later on, and you see the other monsters throughout the episode, but they kind of throw her in at the end. They give you like, she's a double. She gives you a double. Not that I jumped at all, but
And I'm thinking that I think the actor who played the stepfather, I think that's Greg Mulvaney. I wanted to say that was him, unless I've got him confused with.
Yes. Mulvaney, whatever the.
Yeah, sorry about that, mispronounced it. But I think that he was in that Twilight Zone from the 80s episode, A Little Peace and Quiet. I think he played the husband in that one.
He did a lot. He was in a lot. Yeah. Yeah, this guy was in a lot of TV. I'm sure he was in.
I think he was on an episode of Roseanne, actually. Not to bring Roseanne up again, but
we can talk about the show. Stuff, not her personally.
I mean, I think it was the episode where Roseanne dressed up like a man for Halloween. And
I remember that episode.
They were at the Lobo Lounge or whatever, and she went up to the guys playing pool. And I think that guy was one of the guys playing pool.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, all over the place. He was in that Monsters Today show. He was in a couple episodes of that show.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That probably wasn't very good. I don't think I ever saw that, but
No, it wasn't great. No.
Okay.
I watched it. Like I said, there was stuff I just watched because it was on. But like, yeah, I'm like, yeah, it wasn't the best Monsters TV show. Though it had who played Grandpa? Howard Morton played Grandpa, and Lee Merriweather played. That's what Lee Merriweather, who played the third Catwoman from the third they did the the 60s Batman show, the one from they did the movie. She played her in the movie version.
So Clifton's saying dead chat. Yeah, well, being as it is 11:38 p.m. Eastern time, it's going to get dead about this time. There's only 3 people I'd say in here now because one of the 4 is TJ. I know.
Yeah.
So and TJ's on here with me, so he's not necessarily chatting in there. So, is there anything else that you wanted to bring up, TJ, before we get off of here?
No, I think we went backwards and forwards and up and down and left and right and horizontal and vertical.
Yeah. Okay, so it is late, Clifton. A little bit. I didn't intend it to be so late, but yeah, again, I want to thank everybody that was in the chat. I want to thank TJ for co-hosting this stream with me.
Thank you for letting me on.
Oh, well, you have an open invitation. I always say that unless somebody gets on here and they're a dick, they have an open, basically anybody has an open invitation to come on. So we will be covering the second half of the second season of episodes next Wednesday, barring, sickness or anything like that, where we're bedridden and can't come on here. Yeah, I hope not. And then, of course, the Schizoid watch along will be on Saturday. Probably, I'm planning on starting it at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So, TJ, are you going to join me for that one?
Saturday. Yeah, this whole week is kind of crazy for me. I'll try.
Okay. Maybe I can get, Darren or somebody to come on, even if you can't. Or we could have you guys both on, or we could have a whole room full of people.
I haven't seen it for a while. I remember it was the first time I ever saw it. It was on Elvira's movie Macabre back in the late 80s, early 90s. I remember watching it on TV, and it's like, yeah, interesting.
So, I guess I'm going to skedaddle on out here for the night, and I will see everyone on the flip side. Have a good night, TJ. Have a good night, anybody that's left in the chat, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.